Hello everyone, welcome to What If Deku Was Adopted by Zoro Movie 2. Before we start, please go support LINZEF for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Deku is a male. Chapter 1. What would you do if someone in your life gave you the opportunity to be a great hero? Midoriya Izuku, someone who lost his mother at a young age, stopped being that cheerful boy. But one day. Izuku. What's your name? Zoro. Hirano Zoro. A mysterious man, who carried 3 katanas, adopted him and helped him so he could take the path of the hero. This is the story of how a young man became the hero of the sword. The sun was rising, and our young green-haired boy had already packed everything. The moving truck took his things to the new UA dorms. With the recent attacks by villains on the academy students and the recent kidnapping of one of them, Principal Nezu decided to turn UA into a boarding school to protect and monitor the students. The teachers in charge of their respective classes had to visit their students' parents. Eraserhead and Vlad King were surprised to meet at the Kendo dojo, since they didn't know that Uraraka and Kendo were temporarily living together. Vlad had accused Eraser of wanting to steal one of his promising students, but this accusation was appeased by Zoro and Mr. Kendo's welcome and a few glasses of sake. Vlad calmed down and continued with his work. Luckily for both teachers, Zoro and Mr. Kendo had no problem accepting the dormitory proposal. Izuku. Well, I didn't forget anything. Checking his backpack, it's a relief that I didn't unpack when we came here. The green-haired man was carrying an extra backpack with some things the movers couldn't carry. As he did so, a female figure suddenly embraced him from behind. Izuku. Ah, it's Suka, you scared me. Surprised. Kendo. Really? Surprised? It's weird to catch you off guard. Izuku. I was thinking about some things. By the way, are you finished packing? Kendo. Yes, I did it a minute ago. At that moment Izuku notices a slight discouraged tone in his girlfriend's voice. Izuku. What's wrong, Itsuka? Somewhat worried. Istuka. Well, little by little her cheeks blush. It's just that I'll feel a little lonely in the dorms. Izuku. Huh. But you'll be with your classmates. Kendo showed disgust when she saw that Izuku didn't understand what she said. She decided to turn her back on him and leave the room, but she was surprised by Izuku, who gave her a hug from behind. Izuku. I understood what you meant. Gives him a kiss on the cheek. Kendo. Pout. After preparing their things, both were ready to go to the academy, but before leaving they said goodbye to their parents. Mr. Kendo. Take care of yourself. Hugs Kendo with all his might while shedding comical tears. Kendo. I can't breathe. Both green-haired men watched the scene with a drop of an sweat. Zoro. Good luck living with your classmates. Son places his hand on Izuku's shoulder. Izuku. Hi. Zoro. Don't neglect your training. Try to return to the dojo from time to time to check that you are training. Izuku. I'll do it confidently. They both give each other a brief hug and say goodbye. Izuku and Kendo were walking towards the academy while talking for a while. The young woman approaches the green-haired boy and hugs his arm. Izuku is a little surprised, but then tries to hide the blush on his cheeks a little. Kendo. Giggle. I like it when you get nervous about these things. Your attempts to hide your expressions are very cute. Izuku. Embarrassed and blushing. What did you expect? I can't help it having such a pretty girlfriend. Critical hit. Kendo blushed at the green-haired man's words. Upon arriving at UA, the two said their goodbyes. Izuku headed to the Heights Alliance dorms for each class. At a glance, he could see the many similar buildings, and in front of the one where he would be living with Class A, were the two of them and Professor Aizawa. Izuku. Nice to see you all. Ajiro. Nods. Apparently we were all able to come. Hagakure. Exhausted. It was difficult to convince my parents. Jiru. That's normal. Ajiro. You were directly affected by the gas. Before giving the tour, Aizawa complained to the students who participated in Bakugo's rescue because they had betrayed not only them, but every student who knew what they would do, the teacher's trust. If it weren't for Almight's withdrawal, they would have already been expelled. Aizawa. Well, that's all. Cheer up and let's go in. Everyone except Izuku. How are we supposed to do that? Dejected. At that point, Bakugo takes Kaminari behind some bushes and forces him to discharge all his electricity, causing him to go into idiot mode, livening up the class a bit. Once the mood had settled, Class A entered the dorms. Due to their size, Uraraka fainted. Iida rescued her while Aizawa explained about the common areas. Mineta was somewhat excited when the teacher mentioned the bathrooms and laundry room, but he was silenced by a glare and a statement that they were separated for boys and girls. He then proceeded to explain about the dorms and which floors each room was on, explaining which room each student would sleep in. Each one is equipped with a bathroom, refrigerator, air conditioning, and a closet. Kaminari. Great, they have balconies. Izuku. I'll be able to train in the garden. Uraraka. It's a mansion faints. Beta. Uraraka. Izawa. Your things are already in your respective rooms, so unpack for today. Tomorrow I'll tell you what you'll do. That's all. Class A. Hi, sensei. Night fell, some students were in the living room resting after unpacking their things. Kirishima. I'm tired. Lying on the couch. Haminari. It's exciting to live together. Izuku. You're right. Ida. Living together moves his arms, we can learn discipline and cooperation. Kirishima. Hey Izubro. Did you bring your swords? Everyone notices that the green-haired man had one of his swords in a case, on his back. Izuku. Well, somewhat embarrassed, sometimes I don't feel comfortable if I don't have one of my swords with me. Haminari. Wow. So how do you do at the academy? Izuku. I use a bokken, or else he takes the katana out of its case. At first glance it looks like a bokken, but the green-haired man unsheathes the katana showing a steel blade. I use this. Haminari. Why Kirishima? Genial. While they were talking, the girls, who had finished unpacking, appeared with an idea in mind. Mina. Why don't we have a room presentation contest? Tokoyami is startled by the idea. Izuku. Trying to save his partner. Hey, where is Asui-san? Uraraka. She said she wasn't feeling well and stayed in her room worried. Izuku. Mina. Okay, let's go to Urano's room first. Izuku. Lo siento Tokoyami. The bad doodle-doo goes ahead to his room, while Izuku thought a little about his partner and that he realizes that his room was on the first floor, along with Aoyama's, Tokoyami's and Minetta's. Izuku. Should run. But it was late, so the girls opened the green-haired boy's room. At first, it looked ordinary, but it had a small library of books, some of which were recommended by Toshigi and Todoroki. There was an umbrella rack full of bokkens, and a katana rack on the wall with the swords he uses with his hero costume. Uraraka. Why do you have them? Shouldn't they be with your outfit? Izuku. They don't fit in the suitcase, and I feel comfortable having them with me. Momo. These books, can I borrow them? Izuku. Of course. Wait, he stops Momo from touching one of the books. She hasn't finished reading this one yet. Momo. I see. Izuku. I'll give it to you once I finish reading it, or if you want we can read it together. Momo. I would love to. They both seemed to be in their own world, but then Jiru pulls them into hers. Momo was a little blushing, covering her face in embarrassment with a book. Everyone followed Mina to Tokoyami's room. After she and Toru pushed the bat out of the door, they managed to get in. At first glance, everything was dark, illuminated only by a few violet lights. While everyone was looking at Tokoyami's room, Izuku separated from the group and went to the upper floors to find out how the green-haired girl was doing, since he hadn't spoken to her much since that day at the hospital. Izuku. Knocks on the door a couple of times. Sayu, are you awake? The door opens, revealing a sad young woman. Izuku. Sayu, are you okay? Sayu didn't seem like it at all. It was almost a stupid question. She opens the door fully. Sayu. I can't help but say everything I think. The green-haired man remembers that she had mentioned that. Sayu. But there are times when I don't know what to say. Remember what I said at the hospital? Izuku. Yes, places his hand on the back of his neck. I remember. Sayu. I hardened my heart and said terrible things, yet they did, and when I found out this morning, I was shocked, dejected. I thought I'd stop them, and I felt disappointed and upset. I don't know what to say. I didn't think I'd be able to have fun with the others in that. Sayu. That made me very sad. Izuku. Sayu. Sayu. That's why I wanted to tell you, you and the others, even though I couldn't find the words, so I could talk and have fun with you. Izuku hugs her. Izuku. Calm down. I would never get mad at you, Sayu. Thanks for telling me. I know the others will understand. Sayu bursts into tears as she reciprocates the green-haired man's hug. After a few minutes, he no longer hears anything and sees that she has fallen asleep. Izuku. I guess after letting off steam and with a move, she was very exhausted. He carries her like a princess and takes her to her bed. He takes off her shoes and covers her. Sayu rests. After leaving his room, he goes down to the living room where he finds his classmates and discovers that Sato had won the Room King contest. Haminari and Mineta were complaining about the young man since he supposedly bribed the girls with a chiffon cake. This made Izuku laugh. Once they had dinner and Sayu apologized to the others, everyone went to their rooms to rest and return to their daily lives, trying to be better heroes. Chapter 2. 5:30 AM is the time shown on the clock in the green-haired man's room, but he was not in his room. He had already gone down to the kitchen and grabbed an apple and then headed out to the Heights Alliance garden where his oversized weights were. Izuku. Okay, takes off his shirt. Let's start. Cracks his neck a little. 7 AM. Class A was getting up one by one. Iida, accompanied by Uraraka, had prepared breakfast for some, as others preferred cereal. Kirishima. Hey, what about Izubro? Haminari. I don't think he fell asleep or did he? Mina offered to look for him. When she got to his room, she noticed the bed was empty. Mina. Where did he go? Just then, he hears something moving outside at high speed. He approaches the balcony and sees Izuku swinging some weights. Mina. Surprised. Izuku. Looks at his balcony. Mina. What are you doing there? Mina. How can you carry that weight? Izuku. Thinking of an answer. It's not that difficult once you get used to it. That answer brings out a drop of an sweat in Mina. Mina. Come eat something, classes start in an hour. Izuku. It's been that long. Surprised, he drops the weights, causing a slight tremor. I'm coming now. He goes to the entrance. Mina. How can she lift so much weight? While she was still thinking about it, Izuku enters the room and greets his classmates, some of whom were still having breakfast, and then goes to his room. Uraraka. Istaba. Hagakure. Yes, shirtless, although it wasn't visible, she was blushing. Once he gets to his room, upon entering he sees the pink-haired girl still thinking while looking at the abnormally sized weight. Mine. Izuku. This Mina. Mina. When? Izuku. I know the view from the balcony is beautiful, but could you let me get ready for class? Nervous laugh. Mina hurried out while Izuku dressed for UA, but not before taking a shower. Izawa. Then Class A will focus on getting their provisional licenses. All. Hi. Izawa. This license has a great responsibility for human life, and it is clear that it will be difficult to obtain it since only 50% is given each year. Mineta. Is it that hard to get? Worried. Izuku. What kind of tests will they do to make it so difficult? Thoughtful. Izawa. For that, you guys should at least think about. The door opens, revealing Midnight, Cementus, and Ectoplasm. Ectoplasm. 2 special attacks. Everyone except Izuku, Bakugo and Todoroki. Special attacks. Haminari and Mina. Sounds like something from school. Zoro and Kirishima. And like some heroes. Ectoplasm proceeded to explain to them that for a move to be considered special, it must guarantee them victory. Cementus. It must be a movement so engraved in their bodies that no one can copy it. Midnight. Their movements represent them. A hero, if one, is like an endangered species. After explaining in more detail, the teachers asked them to put on their hero suits and go to Gamma Gym. Class A, now in their hero costumes, stood in front of a warehouse-like building. Upon entering, they noticed it was a completely empty space. Izawa. This is Gamma Gym, also called Training Dining Land. Or TLD for short. Uraraka and Mina. A certain mouse will get angry, surprised by the similarity in the acronyms. Cementus. I thought of this place to prepare the ground for each student. He uses his quirk to demonstrate what he says, creating small pillars, hence the name. Haminari. Genial. Iida. I have a question. Why are we doing special movements for our exam? Izawa. Heroes rescue people from crimes, accidents, natural and man-made disasters. The exam observes how well they can do it. The class was a bit tense upon hearing that. Izawa. Their ability to gather information, move and fight, communicate, and attract and guide people. Each year they take a different test to see how they handle these situations. Midnight. That's why their fighting ability is very important in their future as heroes. Having or not having a move can greatly affect. Ectoplasm. Although the special movements are generally attacks like those used by his partner Uranoa. Izuku. Ectoplasm. They don't necessarily have to be. For example, Iida's Reciproburst. The temporary speed boost is enough of a threat to be considered one. Iida. Incredible, I hadn't thought about it. Izuku. Wait, what special move? Ectoplasm. I mean the one you used in your fight with Todoroki. What did you call it? Sambyaku Nijuyan Pondo Hu. 9 sword technique. Asura. 324-pound cannon. Izuku. Wow, so that improvised technique can be considered a special move. Surprised. Todoroki. Did you use a move you invented at that moment in that fight? Although it wasn't noticeable, Todoroki was surprised by what he just heard. Izuku. Yes. You did it too. You launched that attack at point-blank range. Todoroki. It's true. Thoughtful. Ectoplasm clears his throat to get the students' attention again. After explaining that special moves should make them feel like they have the advantage in the fight and Midnight giving some examples, Cementus finished creating sectors for each student. Ectoplasm created several clones for each student so they could get advice and develop creative moves. Izuku was thinking carefully while a patient clone was standing there. He certainly noticed that he wasn't using his quirk much lately and was focusing more on using the santoryu, so he decided to leave his katanas in a safe place and started thinking about how to use his quirk. Ectoplasm, have you thought of any ideas yet? Izuku. Not yet. Ectoplasm. Take it easy. We can improve your swordplay until you have a way to use your quirk. Remember, it doesn't always have to be an attack. You can also use it for capture and other things. At that moment, Izuku remembered the heavy metal technique. Izuku activates the technique. Wait sits on the ground and raises his hand, gathering the metal made with his quirk in his palm. Let's see. Slowly, the sphere takes the shape of a pyramid and then grows taller and taller. Izuku. It's quite heavy but it can work. Ectoplasm. What's on your mind, young man? Izuku. This. The green-haired man gets up from the ground and sees one of the columns in front of him. He moves his arm back and points the palm with the metal at said column. His forearm showed how the metal from his entire body moves towards the small pillar in his hand. He then moves his arm forward and the metal grows at great speed towards the pillar, managing to pass through it without much problem, and then the metal returns to the green-haired man's arm. Ectoplasm. It's certainly a creative way to use your quirk. Izuku. Thank you. Izuku continued practicing using his quirk, testing how far he can extend the pillar and how much metal he can generate. By the time he realized he had spent too much time practicing, Class A's turn to use the gym was over. Class B was already at the entrance of the building accompanied by Vlad King. Before Class A went to change, Aizawa told them that if they wanted to modify their hero costumes, they should go to the development workshop. Izuku was walking towards the workshop, thinking about what to modify in his suit. He didn't know yet if there was a way to strengthen his quirk with some support equipment, but he could modify the material of his suit as well as the design. He arrives and is about to knock when he suddenly hears two of his companions calling him. He greets them, but then an explosion from the room destroys the door and covers part of the room with a curtain of smoke. When it dissipates, at first glance, a certain pink-haired woman appears above our protagonist. When did you get here? Izuku. It's a good thing I covered part of my head with my quirk a few seconds ago. Are you okay? Yes. Thanks to you. Smiles. On one side of both were Iida, who was surprised to see who it was, and Uraraka, who was a little shocked to see what position they were in. Izuku. Can you stand up? This position is a bit compromising. Hatsune realizes that she was on top of the green-haired boy, resting her breasts on his body. Oh, sorry stands. Iida. What are you doing here, Hatsune? May. Doesn't recognize Iida until after a few seconds. Oh, you're the one who helped me promote my babies. Iida. You manipulated me. Izuku. Hey, Hatsune-san. Have you seen Power Loader? I want to change the design of my suit and a support artifact. With just the word artifact, May took the green-haired boy by the hands and took him to the room to show her babies. Chapter 3. Izuku, Uraraka and Iida walked until they reached the Heights Alliance. They were exhausted as they each saw over 20 support artifacts, one of which nearly ripped the green-haired boy in half and another used Iida as a rocket body. But at least Izuku managed to get Power Loader, who wasn't in the workshop until 20 minutes later, to see the design of his new suit and work on it. Now there was only one thing left. Izuku. Iida. Is something wrong? Seeing the green-haired boy's behavior. Izuku. I'm just thinking of some ways to use my quirk creates a small metal sphere. Iida. Saka wait, how much metal can you use? Izuku. Well, increases the size of the sphere. I can use this amount. If I use more the mass of the metal increases and it makes me slower. While talking to Iida, they arrive at the dorms. He decides to go in first while Izuku stays outside to think for a while. While thinking of an idea to use his quirk, he remembers the time he found out he had one and the studies they did to discover it. He then realizes something. Izuku. Wait, now that I think about it, when they asked me to use my quirk as he remembers that day, he repeats the same actions and imbues a branch he picked up somewhere by imbuing weapons with my quirk. The metal doesn't weigh that much. Then when testing his idea, he notices that the weight doesn't vary that much. Saka, I think it'll work. The green-haired boy smiles at the idea, enters the dorms and heads for the stairs, but is stopped by Kirishima, who tells him dinner is ready. How long has he been out after Iida came in? Beep beep beep. Izuku. Who groans. Shut up. Hits the table on the side where the alarm clock was. After several attempts, he managed to turn it off, realizing it was already 5 a.m. After getting up and cleaning up, he went to the kitchen and ate a light meal before leaving the dorms to train. This time, he opted for running, not only for the exercise, but also to learn more about UA. After running for almost 30 minutes, the green-haired boy was in front of the dormitories of Class 1B. Izuku. Sees bedroom 1B, now that I think about it, we haven't talked much since the move, thinking will she be awake? Author's note. I don't know if there's any information about which floor Kendo's room is on, so I'll make it up. While the green-haired man was in a dilemma, which lasted for several minutes, in a room on the second floor, a young orange-haired woman was waking up. Still sleepy, she managed to walk to the bathroom and clean up. As he was walking towards the kitchen, he received a message from a certain green-haired guy. Kendo. Sees the message on his phone, what floor is your room on? Thinks for a few seconds typing I'm on the second floor. After writing the message he walks to the kitchen and opens the refrigerator, but receives another message. Kendo. Takes an apple, takes a bite and takes his phone again, which of all the balconies is your room? Typing why do you want to know? When he sends the message, the green-haired man responds quickly. Kendo. Forget it, I'll guess. What? Don't tell me. She runs to her room, toward the balcony. When she looks for him, she sees him ready to throw something. Izuku. And moves his arm back while joining the metal of his quirk to the palm of his hand now. As he moves his arm forward, the metal stretches and the tip splits into two to form a claw. The metal retracts, pulling the green-haired man toward the balcony. Kendo was so surprised she forgot to call his attention. Izuku relaxes when he sees that the hook idea had worked, but at the same time he is surprised to notice that he hadn't felt as much weight. Confused, he turns to the side and sees Kendo on another balcony. Izuku. Kendo. The balcony door where the green-haired man was opens, revealing a somewhat sleepy-haired woman. Ibara. Yawns, looks at the sky, how beautiful. While doing that, he puts his side in front, seeing a certain green-haired man hanging from the balcony. Ibara. Wake up a little, huh? Izuku. Gee, good morning Shiozaki-san. Nice pajamas, trying to distract Ibara. Author's note. In my humble opinion, I think Ibara would look good in this type of pajamas. Ibara simply stepped back and closed the balcony door, ignoring the incident, thinking she was still asleep. Izuku decided not to think about it and jumped onto Kendo's balcony. Izuku. Good morning Itsuka. Itsuka. Izuku. Confused Itsuka. She hit the green-haired boy's head with her medium-sized hand because of his quirk. Izuku. It painful. Itsuka. You should think a little about your actions. I think it will be easy to convince Ibara that I didn't mention this visit. Izuku. If you want, I can help. He notices that she was looking at him with a withering look. Oh, forget it, sweating nervously. Kendo. So what are you doing here? Izuku. Huh. Why else would I come? I came to see you. He pats him on the head. Kendo. Hey, nervous and blushing, she takes off the green-haired boy's hand. Izuku. As always, you're cute when you're angry. With those words she simply blushes and rests her head on the green-haired man's chest in an attempt to hide her face. Once she managed to remove the blush from her face, she invites the green-haired man to breakfast and then they talk about the issue of provisional licenses. Izuku. Is it okay for me to be here? Kendo. Serves him breakfast and leaves another one for her. Don't worry, sits next to him. Unlike Monoma, the others like you eat a little. Izuku. Saka eats a little. Delicious with bright eyes. Kendo. Thanks Miles, by the way, what you used to get up to the balcony was? Izuku. Yes, it's my quirk. Kendo. Did it evolve? Did you have an awakening? Curious. Izuku. Not at all. I just found another way to use it. Although it's a bit complicated to use, it can help me be more versatile. Kendo. You're right. You'll be able to reach great heights and even capture villains. Izuku listened carefully to every detail as he watched her. Izuku. I'm very lucky, smiles. After breakfast, they both heard footsteps. Some students had woken up. The first to appear were Yu, Tetsu, and Ibara. When she caught glances with the green-haired boy, she became embarrassed and walked straight to the refrigerator. While Kendo went with Ibara, the green-haired boy greeted Tetsu and Kadayu. It is worth mentioning that the greeting between the two young people was a clash of arms forming a cross and using their quirks to create sparks. Ibara. Thoughtful. Kendo. Ibara. The aforementioned start of surprise. Kendo. Are you okay? Ibara. Yes. It just looks at the green-haired boy for a moment. Kendo realizes what her friend was doing. Kendo. Sorry. I told Izuku my room was on the second floor, but he wouldn't let me explain which one it was and ended up on your balcony. Ibara. I understand, embarrassed. Kendo. So why are you like this? Referring to his behavior. Ibara. Well, he saw me in my pajamas, not to mention he said it looked good on me. Now it's hard for me to see him embarrassed. Kendo couldn't help but say how sweet and hug her. As most of the students were leaving, Izuku and Kendo walked to the main entrance and said their goodbyes. He placed a hand on her cheek and gave her a tender, short kiss on the lips before saying goodbye. Endo saw it for a few seconds and then entered the building, but when she did she saw that all the girls were looking at her mockingly, making her nervous. As days passed, students in both classes had developed techniques or were halfway through their development. Right now, Class 1 was using the TDL gym and developing more techniques or testing out the support artifacts they requested from the development team, along with new hero outfits. Tokoyami. Now, Dark Shadow. Dark Shadow? Yes, partner. The living quirk covers Tokoyami, creating a shadow suit. Tokoyami. By covering myself with Dark Shadow, I compensate for my physical strength and close combat. I call it Black Abyss Body. Midnight. Good idea, but the name should be simple. Dark Shadow. I understand. Izawa and Almight watched from below as the students advanced. Izawa. Some have already established their styles. And others have developed multiple moves. They both watched Bakugo, who was testing a technique he had in mind. Using his hand to form a tube, he used the other to concentrate the power in a single point, launching a bullet that managed to pierce the cement wall. He called it AP shot. Izawa. They are progressing well. Almight. As always, Bakugo is progressing quite well. Izawa. Yes. While they were talking, the cracks in the wall spread to the edges, causing a piece to break loose and fall in All Might's direction. Bakugo tried to warn them, but it was too late. Izawa rushes over and tries to extend his bandages towards All Might, but… Izuku. Leaf extension. With his sword rising little by little, the blade was extended, avoiding touching All Might and managing to extend to the end of his head. Izuku. Upward cut. The extended blade completely cuts through the piece of wall, and with the power of the attack, he somehow managed to separate both parts enough for them to fall right next to the retreating hero. The green-haired man appears, wearing his new outfit, the one on the cover, with a small black bag behind him like the ones the ninjas in Naruto have. He retracts the blade and puts away the katana. Even though he rescued All Might, Izawa reprimanded the green-haired boy a bit for doing something so reckless. But he still managed to surprise both teachers and the ash-haired boy who saw everything with his special move. Chapter 4. Izawa. I don't know whether to congratulate you on your special move or punish you for doing something reckless. Izawa is talking to the green-haired boy after he saved All Might. Izuku. I know, but it was the only thing I could do. Izawa. Think things through before you act. Tired. Izuku. I guess he prefers to let it go, with a drop of sweat on his temple. Izawa. So what you used is a special move. Izuku. Nods. It was something I was able to improve recently. The green-haired man takes his sword and increases the size of the blade with his quirk. Izuku. It's something I did a while ago, but the weight prevented me from using it for long periods of time. I recently thought about thinning the blade to remove the extra weight, and although it requires a lot of concentration, I can now use it for longer periods of time, and it's more effective. After deactivating his quirk, he puts away his katana again, then bids farewell to the teachers and heads to Ectoplasm's location. After teaching him a new special move along with the advancements in his quirk, the teacher offered him a new training program. Ectoplasm. Do you know why I ask you to only bring one of your katanas? Izuku. The truth, no. Ectoplasm. Seeing that you have experience in combat and several special moves, we will focus on improving your control over your quirk in a combat simulation. The training consisted of facing 10 Ectoplasm clones at the same time, a training he had done a long time ago and didn't last long against the same clones. The professor thought the green-haired man would refuse, but in reality, it was quite the opposite. He was excited. The training begins. 3 of the clones attack head-on, but Izuku backs away and stands guard with his katana drawn. Launching an energy blast, he separates the clones and attacks one of them, making it disappear. 2 more clones replace him, making 4 of them attack him at once. Izuku takes 2 objects out of his black bag. When activated, they increase in size, revealing themselves to be 2 bokkens that have the function of being extensible. He imbues his weapons, trying to use less metal to avoid them being heavy, and takes one in his mouth as 3 ectoplasms approached, along with 3 others that joined the battle. Izuku. Maldition, Santoryu Tatsumaki. Creating a tornado for a short time, almost a second, he pushes away the ectoplasm clones and then concentrates all his quirk on his sword. Izuku. Leaf extension. Increases leaf size up to about 3 meters. Izuku. Horizontal cut cord horizontal. With one swing, he hits all the clones. But because he didn't make a blade, he hit them using only brute force. Even so, the clones disappeared with the force of the attack. Although they disappeared, Ectoplasm continued creating clones. Izuku was surprised, but he didn't stop at making them disappear one by one. The green-haired man wasn't coming out unscathed. There were times when he didn't move properly, leaving an opportunity for the clones to land some attacks. Izuku. TCH clicks his tongue and steps back to get away from the Ectoplasm Santoryu Hyakuhachi Pondo Hu 108-pound cannon. The green-haired man launches 3 power cuts causing some clones to disappear. Ectoplasm. Midoriya, if you want you can take. Izuku. Don't stop, points his sword at the clones, I'll defeat them all. The green-haired boy surprises the teacher. Izuku. This is fun, smiles and then hits a clone who was behind him on the head. The fight remained almost equal even if you count the damage the clones received. The green-haired man was slowly wearing thin, while the original Ectoplasm had only received a single blow through carelessness. Some students had decided to take a break to watch the fight between those two. Minutes later. Izuku. Sighs exhaustedly, so close. Ectoplasm. Not a mal, Midoriya. The battle between the two ended with Ectoplasm's victory as he made it a battle of endurance. The green-haired man puts away his katana and bakens, and Kaminari and Kirishima approach the young man. Kirishima. Amazing, Izubro. Kaminari. You were amazing. Those new bakens are great. Izuku. Thanks. I see you guys asked for some improvements too. That's right, some students requested upgrades or improvements to their suits and support equipment. But the most notable among them was Kaminari's. Kaminari. I see you've noticed. Izuku. Noticed. You literally have a white launcher on your arm, something you didn't have before. It's quite striking. Kaminari. Maybe, but this improvement is the greatest thing about me. Do you want to see it? You'll be surprised. Kirishima was fascinated to know what Kaminari's picture was all about, but just as Kaminari was about to demonstrate. Vlad. Eraser, it's time for you to leave. Class B will be using this place in the afternoon. Class B had arrived at the entrance of TTL. Behind the teacher was the class president, Itsuka Kendo. And Monoma. Kaminari. How inopportune, frustrated at not being able to show the functioning of his picture. Izuku and Kendo exchange glances, then greet each other with their hands and a smile. Kaminari. And. Mineta. Envy. Crying blood while seeing how well the relationship between Izuku and the president of Class B was going. Plan Ectoplasm. Concentrate, kicks the purple-haired boy's head. Ignoring the purple-haired guy. Izawa. We still have 10 minutes to use the room, with his normal tone of voice. You're not good with timing, Vlad. While they were both talking, Kendo approached the green-haired boy. Kendo. So you changed your whole outfit? Izuku. Nods, I didn't think about it carefully before. Kendo. And now? Izuku. Not really, I just thought this design would be more functional. Kendo. I see, looking closely at the design of the suit. Izuku. If you want, you can play annoying his girlfriend. Kendo. What are you saying? He tries to hit the green-haired boy, but he dodges. Izuku. I'm sorry, hugs her. By doing this, she calms down a little. Still flushed, she pulls away from Izuku, grabs his arm, and throws him toward one of the pillars, creating a small crater where he impacted. In a way, it could be the young man's fault, since there are times when she has to maintain her appearance as president, but only sometimes. The green-haired man comes out of the crater, showing that he covered the back of his entire body with his quirk to lessen the damage. Izuku. I had forgotten that he usually reacts like this, somewhat sore. Then he hears a familiar voice. Did you know? The failure rate on the exam is 50%. Monoma was bothering Class A as always. Kaminari. Approaches Kendo. Hey, it really is his hero suit. Kendo. According to him, since his quirk is copying, he doesn't need anything extravagant. Kaminari. And that's not extravagant. Monoma's outfit is elegant, with several watches on his belt. His performance draws the attention of some of the students in Class A. Monoma. You all should fail. How? The dark metal cane hits the student directly on the forehead, with enough force to render him unconscious, but not seriously injure him. Vlad. Hey you, points at the green-haired man, you shouldn't do that. Izuku. In my defense, he got in the way when I was testing how far I can take my quirk. Vlad. Izawa. Izuku. Okoyami. Now that I think about it, in the exam we'd have to face Class B as well as students from other high schools. Izawa. That won't happen. Kendo. Confused. Izawa. Classes A and B will apply in different locations. Vlad. The exam is held in 3 different locations. To prevent the same school from competing, they are all divided by time and location. But that said, both classes had a lot to think about. For starters, they'd have to face other schools, not to mention that not many first-year students apply for the license, so they'd be facing more experienced students with quirks they'd never seen before. Izawa. I know it's not good to worry, but you should keep in mind. All. Hi. Izuku had already rested and was ready to face Ectoplasm again, but when he was heading towards him a hand grabbed his shoulder. Izawa. Even though he deserved it, you shouldn't have done that, Uraraka. Izuku. A. Night. In the dorms of Class A, more specifically, in the living room, the girls of said class were gathered. Hagakure. I'm exhausted lays her head on Mina's thighs sleepy. Mina. I understand you lets her head fall on the back of the sofa we work a lot every day exhausted. Jiru. Brings drinks for everyone and sits next to Mina it's normal that they're intensive. After all, there's only 1 week left until the exam. Uraraka. By the way Momo, how's your movement going? Momo. I want to do something, but my body can't handle the pressure. Hagakure. Speaking of which, I saw you use a sword against Ectoplasm. For a moment there seemed to be cherry blossoms around you. Uraraka. Seriously? Shocked. Momo. It's something I can't do yet. What Mina saw was an attempt at my master's technique, but it has a drawback that makes it difficult. Note. Toshigi doesn't show many named techniques in the anime, so I got it from the game One Piece Pirate Warriors 3. Hagakure. Sokka. Momo. And Seiya, how are you doing with your special moves? Seiya. I managed to perfect a more frog-like movement. I'm sure it will surprise you. The girls were discussing their training, special moves, and hinting at what the exam to get their licenses would be about. While they were chatting, someone changed the subject. Hagakure. Oya, Momo-chan. Momo. Yes. Combing her hair. Hagakure. What's between you and Uraraka-kun? That question surprised some of those present. Hagakure. A T gust. Momo. There's nothing between us. She had responded instantly. Many would think she was trying to hide some secret, but her serene expression proved otherwise. Momo. He's just a very good friend, not to mention that thanks to him I was able to become stronger. Hagakure. I see. Sorry, embarrassed. Momo. Don't worry, smiles. Hagakure. By the way, what did you mean by making you stronger? Momo. He supported me when I wasn't very confident in my abilities. I also got to meet my teacher with his help and that of his father. Hagakure. Wow, he really is cool. Uraraka-kun and his father always have a strange serious vibe. Jiru. You know Izuku's father. Hagakure. I only saw it from afar when we had the accident in USJ. I saw Izuku and a man dressed as a samurai fighting against that creature. I had never been afraid of a person. Mina. Don't worry, he's very nice. Hagakure. Gets up from her lap pillow. How do you know? Glare. Mina. Well. Momo. That's right, we went with Kendo to visit Izuku. Echako and Kirishima came too. Uraraka. It's true remembering. Hagakure. Boop out, you should have warned me. Jiru. Sees how Mina and Hagakure were arguing, it's strange. Even when he's not here, Uraraka helps us. Now they seem more relaxed about the exam, smiles a little. While the girls were enjoying their night, our green-haired boy was walking toward Heights Alliance. Because, although he saved Almight, his method was somewhat dangerous. With that in mind, Aizawa punished him by helping him move a couple of stacks of documents to the teacher's lounge. And by helping, he meant having Izuku move them himself. Izuku. Aizawa-sensei abused his power walk somewhat annoyed. As he was arriving at the dorms, Izuku felt someone watching them. At the entrance to Heights Alliance was a certain pale-haired boy with a withering look. Izuku. Bakugo. What are you doing here? Confused. The young man doesn't respond. He just approaches the green-haired man. Izuku. Are you okay? Bakugo. Clean low tone. Izuku. Huh. What did you say? Bakugo. I said thanks broccoli. Angry. Izuku. Why remember what happened with All Might I understand. Don't worry about it. Bakugo, upon hearing that, was about to enter the dorms, accompanied by the green-haired boy. Izuku. You know he places a hand on the shoulder of the ashen-haired boy. If you want I can help you get closer to Shiozaki-san. Bakugo. Shut up. Angry. Although the green-haired boy didn't notice it, Bakugo was a little nervous when he mentioned Shiozaki Ibara. Chapter 5. A week has passed, and now Class 1 was standing in front of the building where they would take the exam to obtain their provisional hero licenses. If they managed to obtain them, they would be one step closer to becoming professional heroes. Some were anxious, like Mineta, who jumped in place as if he wanted to go to the bathroom. Jiru. Long sigh. How nervous? Mineta. I don't know if I can do this. Nervous. It's not whether you can do it or not. Just do it. Aizawa had appeared in front of the purple-haired boy the moment he got distracted. Mineta. Why yes. Terrified at seeing his teacher in front of him. Aizawa. Stands in front of his students. If you pass this test, you'll get your licenses, the eggs will become chickens, you'll become semi-professionals. Try hard. They all nodded vigorously. Although their teacher's words were neutral in tone, they managed to fill his children with confidence. Amanari and Kirishima were about to shout plus ultra, but were interrupted by a tall young man with a robust body and a very enthusiastic attitude. Even his apology was quite exaggerated. Once the young man left accompanied by his companions. With your permission, people of UA. Retires to the building. Izuku? Who was he? Confused by that student's behavior. Jiro? That uniform. Amanari? I remember now. That uniform belongs to the famous Western High School. Bakugo? UA is in the east and Shuketsu is in the west. Izuku? I understand that makes Shuketsu our rivals. Izawa? Inasayurashi. Hagakure? Low Kanis, sensei. Izawa? He's strong. Last year he got the best grades of all the recommended students, but he turned down the chance to get in. Izuku? Incredible. Zero? Wait, if he had the best grades, why would he reject getting into UA? Mina? Right. Weird. Izawa? It's weird, but okay. Avoid fighting directly against. Izawa? Calling the teacher. At that moment, Izawa showed a felt true terror. I saw you on TV during the sports festival approaching him, but I haven't seen you in person for a while. It was none other than Ms. Joke, known for her quirk that makes people laugh. Using this quirk, she manages to destabilize the villains, finishing them off with a few blows. Some of the students wondered how two heroes with completely opposite personalities knew each other. Ms. Joke. Hey Izawa, Kasamonos. Mina squealed upon hearing the sudden confession of love. Izawa. No directly, simply. Ma Joke. Laughs I love you, only you can do these quick finishes. Mina. Kaya, an unrequited love excited. Sai. They seem to be good friends. Ms. Joke. The truth is, our agencies were close. As we worked together, love blossomed blushing like a maiden in love. Izawa. He didn't do it. Ms. Joke. Laughs and blush disappears you're great, Izawa. Izawa understood that if she was here, it meant that the Ketsubutsu Academy hero class was present. These students approached the UA class when Ms. Joke called them. At first, one of them greeted them in a friendly manner, but Bakugo saw behind his mask, since his expression did not match what he said. Nakagami. Todoroki, Uraraka, could I have your autographs? You were awesome in the final battle. Happy. Todoroki. I confused. Izuku. Sure, I have no problem slight confusion, wait a second, sports festival. Once they've exchanged words, the Ketsubutsu Academy students head towards the building. Ms. Joke says goodbye to Izawa, but not before mentioning that she would save a spot for him, close to her. Izawa. Don't waste time and go change. All. Hi. Class A was already in the room, along with all the classes from other academies. It was a myriad of costume designs, some original and others seemingly inspired by their favorite heroes. In front of them was a man asleep on a podium. His face indicated that he hadn't slept much. Izuku. Wow, this looks like a Comic-Con joking. In that, Jiro and Momo find him. Jiro. Uraraka calling the green-haired boy. Izuku. Jiro, Momo. Hello. Momo. Hello Izuku notices something strange And your katanas? Izuku. I only brought one, since it would be dangerous to bring all three and use it in the test. When I wanted to bring it here, one of the members who works here took it from me. Jiro. Because it would be dangerous to use it in the test. Izuku. Exactly. Jiro. And why did you bring the katana? Izuku. Because I felt uncomfortable without the sword. Jiro and Momo watched it, with beads of sweat on their temples. Izuku. What did you expect? My father raised me like this. In that, the man asleep on the podium wakes up. When he does. Mara. Let's start the provisional license exam waking up I'm Mara, from the Hero Public Safety Commission, I like unsynchronized sleep. Nice to meet you Downcast. Before his presentation, he began to complain about not being able to sleep properly due to overwork. He seemed as if he might faint at any moment. After a few minutes, he explained what the first part of the exam would be about. Because society was saturated with heroes, they decided to opt for a speed test in which only 100 students, out of the 1,540 present, could pass. Each student would have 3 markers, which they would have to place anywhere on their body, and 6 balls to try to activate their opponent's markers. Mara. Well, once everyone has their markers and spheres, the expansion will take place, and a minute later the test will begin. Todoroki. Expansion. Confused. Suddenly, the walls began to separate and the entire room opened up like a box, revealing a field large enough to have sections simulating a city, a rural area, a mountain, and even a factory. Was it unnecessary for it to be so big? Both Bakugo, accompanied by Kirishima and Kaminari, and Todoroki separated from the Class A group. Todoroki had a reason, since he can fully use his quirk when he is alone, because he could attack his own by mistake. Start of the first provisional license test. Urano and the rest decided to let them do their thing. They all went to the mountainous Ona. The green-haired man explained to them that they were already at a disadvantage. Some seemed to understand why, but others decided to ask him. Izuku. It's because of the UA Sports Festival. The moment we participated there, we lost the advantage of them not knowing about our quirks. With Ms. Joke and Eraser. Ms. Joke, although the exam format changes every year, there is always a tradition. Izawa. Tries to ignore her. Ms. Joke. You should have mentioned that to your class, you know. The tradition of the provisional license exam. Destroy, UA. With Class A. Urano and the class managed to reach the rocky area, but when they do, Mineta signals alerting the UA class. Hundreds of balls were thrown at them by classes from other schools. Mina and Zoro managed to react quickly and used their quirks to melt catch some of them. Momo created several shields protecting those whose quirks don't specialize in ranged combat. Urano used his retractable Bakens, imbuing them with his quirk to give them durability and sharpness, and created a black katana in his mouth. Izuku. Cut several of the balls. Then one of the students from another school, whose quirk hardens whatever he touches, hardens the balls and passes them to his ally to throw them. Said ally's quirk can change the trajectory of what he throws and throws them underground to hide said trajectory. Izuku. Closes his eyes and cuts the spheres that were aimed at him. Your turn, Jiru. Jiru. You mustn't mention it. Connects his jack to the speakers on his gloves and sticks them to the ground. Heartbeat fuzz. The purple-haired girl sends sound waves to the ground, powerful enough. They destroy the ground, revealing the previously thrown hardened balls. These were aimed at Mineta, but Mina used her quirk, creating a wall of acid capable of melting said spheres. UA was ready to fight back, but a student from Ketsubutsu Academy, Yoshindo, used his shake quirk to create an earthquake and further disrupt the mountainous terrain. Izuku was barely able to stand, but managed to unleash a few energy slashes with his sword, forcing one of the Ketsubutsu Academy students to save Shindo by moving him out of the way, causing his quirk to deactivate. Izuku. Damn kneels for a few seconds. Mina. What are you doing, Izuku? Izuku. Huh. Confused. Jiru. That's right, you should have passed by now. Izuku. What are you talking about? Still confused. Mina. You can defeat these students and pass the first test. Izuku. But, I think. Jiru. We've also become strong adjusting the small amplifiers on his wrists. You don't need to protect us all the time. Izuku notices that all his classmates were showing confidence before the violet-haired girl's words. The green-haired boy just smiles. Izuku. Smiles a little, then creates a black katana with his quirk. I'll wait for you at the second test. Everyone nodded and went on the attack. Shindo recovered and was about to use his quirk again, but was interrupted by an acid attack, which he managed to dodge. Some of the students attack UA, but Izuku, imbuing two retractable Bakens with his quirk and a katana in his mouth, uses Tatsumaki in the air to deflect some of the balls. He then puts away his weapons and stabs some of them with the katana, making a ball skewer. Student. Oh no. STUDNT2. Now what? Izuku gets closer to Shindo, dodging the students and managing to connect several blows with his sword to the young man and his markers. Said markers showed a red glow before being destroyed by the green-haired man's attacks. Shindo. What falls unconscious from the damage? Izuku. I think I went too far with a drop of sweat on his temple. Class A began their counterattack. Meanwhile, the green-haired students' scoreboards flashed green in approval. An announcer instructed those who passed to go to the break room until the first test ended. Izuku. I'll wait for you in the break room. Don't lose. Everyone got a little more motivated and went for the other classes. Chapter 6. After managing to defeat Shindo from Ketsubutsu Academy, Izuku was sent to the break room until the first test was over. As he reached the break room, he couldn't help but hear a student talking too loudly. Izuku. That's it. Class A was doing their best to advance, but they were separated by the rest of the students from other academies. Momo. Anyone nearby, Jiru? Jiru. Nails his jacks to the wall. There's no one around. Shoji. Creates eyes on his limbs to keep watch. I don't see any enemies. Momo, Jiru, Shoji and Tsuyu had separated from the rest and arrived at an urban area. When they arrived, they decided to hide in one of the many buildings to avoid ambushes. They entered a room with a wall that was basically all windows. From another building, two young women, wearing white uniforms, watched the security cameras with the help of one of their quirks. Student 2. We have confirmed 4 UA students inside the building. Opens his eye, projecting the image of the information he received. Psycho. Watches the students while drinking some tea. Several arms, sound waves, frog and creation of objects. Psycho Atelli, the CI Academy student, drinks some tea to activate her quirk and details her plan. All the students from the same academy were informed by the communicators they carried. One of them, located in a building next to the one where the UA class was, with a modified gauntlet, prepares a projectile. The small U group was taking a short break, but Shoji and Jiro weren't feeling comfortable, so they decided to keep using their quirks to keep watch, while Momo thought of a plan. Suddenly Jiro notices something. Jiro. Hey, 5 people just entered the building. Everyone reacts and prepares for the counterattack, but suddenly Jiro screams in pain, covering his ears with his hands and pulling the jacks out of the wall. Seiya and Momo went to help her, but suddenly some projectiles went through the windows at high speed, damaging the glass enough for it to fragment, hindering Shoji's vigilance. Jiro stands up, somewhat recovered. They are probably already at the entrance, connects her jack to the amplifiers on her wrists. He runs towards the entrance of the room, but when he was about to launch his attack, a projectile hits the amplifier. The girl who was causing the chaos fires a second projectile, but it doesn't hit. Momo, who had created a katana, managed to block the shot with the blade. Momo. That was close, worried. The shooter was in shock as the data on Yayoi Rozu had nothing about her swordsmanship. Psycho was somewhat confused. According to the plan, at this moment the shooter should have given the signal to warn that phase 1 of said plan had concluded. Student 2. Something went wrong. Confused. Psycho. That's impossible. Worried. With the data we had on that group, the chances of my plan failing are. At that moment, sound waves emerge from the door, stunning all the students. The door opens, Shoji, Jiro and Momo leave the room and manage to incapacitate several students, leaving the raven-haired girl with Psycho. Psycho. How is that possible? You guys should be trapped in that room. My plan was supposed to be a success. Frustrated and angry. Momo didn't respond, she simply moved closer to Psycho, causing her to panic and trip. Momo brought a ball closer and touched the sensors. The rest of the group did the same with the rest of the students, thus obtaining victory over the first test. Seiya had already done that first, she was in the other building with the captured shooter. She was shedding a few tears for having failed in the plan. During the last minutes of the first test, the eliminated students were increasing. At the end, all of the students of UA Class A managed to pass the test, but due to the long-range attacks like those of Todoroki or the Shiketsu student, too many were eliminated at once, causing there to not be enough students for everyone, so there were a few who did not manage to pass. In the break room, some of Class A's students, like Hagakure and Mina, were trying to socialize with students from other schools. As a result, thanks to Mina's personality, they managed to make friends with other students. Momo was speaking in another group formed with Class A, thinking about strategies for the possible test she could pass in the second half. Kaminari and Kirishima were trying to start a conversation with Bakugo, without much success. While they were still at it, the green-haired boy was sleeping, sitting on the floor and leaning against the wall. Waiting was boring, so he trained for a bit before falling asleep out of boredom. Some students tried to disturb him while he slept, but when they got close to him, they sensed he was making a mistake, so they gave up. Hagakure. Mine. Notices that her friend was closely observing a certain person. Hey, I don't think that's a good idea. Mina. Why do you say that? Don't you trust me? Somewhat sad. Hagakure. Mina. Stop acting well, why do you say that? Hagakure. Because every time you tried, you either failed or got embarrassed. I still remember how you blushed. Slight laugh. Mina. A little blushing. That's only because I didn't expect it to be difficult. She pouts while looking away. Hagakure. Don't do what I think you'll do. Mina. I'm just going to scare him. Ignoring all of Hagakure's warnings, Mina approaches Izuku without thinking, and when she was close she was ready to scare him. Mina. No, I think painting a mustache on him would be better. Slight laugh while looking for a marker. She was about to walk away, but as she did she tripped and fell backwards, colliding with the green-haired man and ending up next to him. At that moment, Mina and the students present, except for the rest of Class A, felt true terror, but luckily for them, the green-haired boy seemed to be sleeping peacefully. Momo noticed what was happening and approached quickly, accompanied by Jiro. Momo. Whispers Mina. Quick, get out of there. Worried. Mina. Whispers huh. Why? Confused. Momo. Whispers he has a bad habit when sleeping. It was already late. Izuku hugs Mina with his arm, pulls her close, and rests his head on hers. Mina. Huh. Confused and a bit blushing. What's going on? Izuku. He moves a little but continues sleeping. Momo. Whispers let's just say he tends to grab people when he sleeps. Mina couldn't help but feel embarrassed when she saw how she was hugged by Izuku in front of many people. Mina. What do I do now? Yeah Momo. Izuku. Could you start by stopping trying to play pranks on me? They were both surprised to see that he was awake. Jiro. Wow, are you a good actor now? Jokes with the green-haired boy. Izuku. No. I just woke up a little while ago. Light laugh. Mina. Then see could you let me go? somewhat embarrassed. Izuku. Of course he lets go, gets up and stretches a little. How long did I sleep? Momo. Quite a lot, although I think the second part will start at some point. Izuku. I hope it's something easy. Imagine what the second test would be about. Jiro. Why are you complaining? You finished the first test in a few minutes. Izuku. Light laugh. Good point with a hand on the back of his neck. Jiro just sighs and shows a slight smile seeing the green-haired boy's expression. Once they had rested a bit, Mara announced that the second part of the test would soon begin. Students from all the hero academies prepared their costumes, but then a screen in the break room lit up, showing the scene where the first part of the exam took place. Suddenly, one of the buildings exploded, followed by the other buildings. Everyone was in shock. What would the second part be about? Mara, speaker. This will be the next and final stage of the exam. Several civilians were walking towards the destroyed area. Mara, speaker. In this destroyed place we want to see your rescue techniques. Izuku instinctively cursed. He trained his sword fighting style, his techniques, his special abilities, and even mastered one of them as an ultimate move, but he'd never thought about rescue techniques. Izuku. This isn't good. Jiro. Bad for you. Broccoli head pats him on the back in an attempt to cheer him up. Izuku. Sighs. Thanks for the encouragement. Okay, stretches a little. I'll manage. While they were thinking about it, Momo was already thinking of some ideas for the rescue, but when she was doing so, suddenly an alarm resounds throughout the room. Speaker. Alert, villains have committed terrorist acts. Seiya. What's happening? Jiro. Jiro. Is this the rescue scene? Seiya. That just means. Speaker. The entire city is affected. The destruction of numerous buildings has resulted in numerous casualties. Seiya. It has begun. Loudspeaker. The roads have been damaged. The rescue will be late. Until they arrive, the rescue operations will be carried out by the heroes. But that said, the students headed towards the city, beginning the last part of the test. The test was progressing slowly. The students had found the civilians trapped in the rubble, but. Student. Now takes the civilian by the arms. A small group lifted and held the debris while the student pulled it out. Once the civilian was secured. Civilian. Your treatment was a little rough. Student. Huh. Confused. Civilian. You're referring to the students who held the debris did it well, but you didn't check whether the debris would break when you lifted it. And you were supposed to check whether it wasn't seriously injured. Minus points. The student said nothing, but his face was a shade of blue. The civilians had power over the students' grades, not to mention being quite particular about the rescue techniques they used. So, basically, the students' grades depended on their treatment of civilians. While they were processing what the civilian mentioned, a weak piece of debris resting on a building broke loose, falling toward the students and civilian. They hadn't reacted in time, and it was too late to avoid it, but then. Izuku. Sanjuroku Pondo Hu. A certain green-haired man launches an energy attack that cuts and pushes the rubble, causing it to fall to the sides of the group. The green-haired man didn't mention anything and continued running in search of civilians in danger. Izuku. Thinking, how can I help civilians with my fighting style? As he continued running, he heard a voice calling him. Turning around, he saw it was Yaoirozu and Uraraka, who were planning how to free a civilian who was stuck in a small space under some rubble, but they couldn't touch anything, since it seemed that any false move could make this fragile structure collapse. Izuku. Comes closer and sees the scene better. I think I understand what's happening. Something serious. Can I help with something? Momo. Nods. You could use a more powerful technique than the Sanjuroku Pondo Hu, or something more powerful to move all the debris at once. Izuku. I could do it, but there's still a risk that someone move and hurt the hostage. Uraraka. I already have a countermeasure for that. After explaining his part of the plan, Izuku moves a few meters away and makes 3 black swords with his quirk, then assumes a stance and channels his spiritual energy. Momo creates several bars and places them between the rubble and the civilian to avoid said large debris. Uraraka quickly moves around while touching most of the debris that could probably hurt the civilian. Uraraka. Touches the last rubble now. Izuku. See. Santoryu Hyakuhachi Pondo Hu. After launching her energy attack, most of the debris was pushed away. Those that weren't were floating away due to Uraraka's quirk. Momo got out and helped the boy up, but not before checking him for minor injuries. As a result, the civilian didn't complain as much, which was a good point. Chapter 7. The rescue maneuvers were slow but steady. The students were receiving some criticism for the maneuvers, such as Urashi Inasa of Shiketsu, who lost points for his clumsy quirk technique. Haminari. Kirishima, there. Haminari manages to spot a civilian hanging from a beam, about to fall. Kirishima doesn't hesitate and runs toward him, climbing a section of the building to gain height. The civilian no longer had strength and lets go. Kirishima jumps and manages to catch him in the air. Kirishima. Close your eyes. The civilian nods. Kirishima grabs him tightly and he lands on his back on some rubble. The student manages to use his quirk to stiffen only his back, avoiding serious injury. As a result, the civilian only loses a few points as the act of bravery won him over. Both students were about to celebrate when suddenly a masked man carrying a gun shot Kaminari in the arm. Kirishima. Kaminari. Concerned. Kaminari. I'm fine, this just hurts a little. Notices that his arm was covered in a strange slimy material, which instantly got angry. This kneels down is heavy. Even with his arm disabled, he uses the launcher on his other arm to fire a few discs at the villain, but the villain easily dodges them. What he didn't expect was that the disc would act as a lightning rod. Kaminari used his quirk and all the electricity was directed at the disc, striking the villain in the process. Each henchman acting as a villain was under the command of Gang Orca, who was assisting with this year's exam, and to give the students an advantage, he used the same weights the UA Academy teachers used for the practical exam. He was chosen not only for his experience and availability, but also because he was ranked third in the heroes who resemble villains. A student from Ketsubutsu Academy decides to take action and defeat the villain. The villain was confident, but when he approached to attack him, Gang Orca stunned him using a sound wave, a characteristic of killer whales. Izuku manages to reach the first aid station, where the wounded were gathered. One of the students approaches him. Izuku. Can you treat his wounds? Slight bleeding on his head and probably a crack in his leg bone. Student. Huh. A fisher confused. Civilian. H. How did you know? Izuku. I noticed you were showing signs of pain when I was carrying you. That's why. Civilian. I don't need any further explanation. The green-haired man brought the civilian down. He was somewhat dejected as he hadn't expected the green-haired man to know about his broken leg. This action suggested that the green-haired man's senses were quite good. Out of nowhere, Izuku creates a sword and cuts a projectile that was aimed at the civilian. Izuku. With a drop of sweat was close, calming his breathing. In his line of vision was a masked man carrying a gun. When Izuku saw his sword, he noticed that what he had cut, the remnant of the bullet, had dried quickly. Izuku. Cement. Little by little, more of the villain's henchmen appeared, each carrying the weapon. Student. What the heck? Worried. Student 2. Isn't that too much? Worried. But in front of both students, one slowly stepped forward while swords were being generated in his free hand and in his mouth. Student. Hey, what are you doing? Confused. Izuku. What do you think? Swings one of the swords, keeping the first aid station safe. The green-haired man rushes fearlessly toward the henchman. They fire, but the green-haired man slices through each of the bullets and, undoing the blades of said weapons at the last moment, cuts some of them, managing to knock them out almost instantly. Already in the middle of the group, he uses the Tatsumaki 3-sword technique to lift some of them, letting them fall, incapacitating them. Izuku takes a short break, having used his techniques enough to notice signs of fatigue, but said break was short-lived as more minions were appearing. Izuku. This will be fun size, and then attacks them. Gang Orca had the Ketsubutsu student in his grasp. He was ready to deliver the finishing blow when suddenly a wave of ice hit him, forcing him to release the student, who had been paralyzed by the villain's previous attack. Todoroki, who attacked Gang Orca, sighs a little, exhaling cold air. Todoroki. Are you okay? Directing the words to the student. The student was barely conscious after receiving a direct attack from the sound wave of the hero acting as the villain. Shindo. I'm fine. But I can't move. Although the ice pushed Gang Orca away, the hero used the sound wave to make him more fragile, managing to block Todoroki's attack more easily. At that moment, a gust of wind hits the ice, destroying it completely, revealing that Gang Orca was still intact. And Sasa. Intruding villains. It's really an interesting development. There, Shiketsu's student Inasa makes his appearance and at the same time crosses glances with Todoroki, but he ignores him. Todoroki. Go help with the evacuation of the first aid area. Your quirk is probably good for that. I'll take charge here. Inasa only responded with a sigh at Todoroki's idea. He throws a flame towards Gang Orca. The villain was preparing a countermeasure, but when said fire was about to make contact, a gust of wind that was also aimed at the villain causes both attacks to deviate. Inasa. Stop using those flames. The air becomes unstable in the heat. The two continued arguing. Todoroki could hear Inasa's hatred for him. It was all Endeavor's fault. When Inasa was young, he had a vision of heroes. But when he tried to get Endeavor's autograph, he just brushed him aside, saying he was a nuisance. Since then, Inasa tried to be a hero like he always saw them, and in the UA entrance exam, he recognized that Todoroki Shoto is Endeavor's son. He managed to be the first in the class, managing to surpass him and tried to be his friend, but the eyes that Shoto had back then were similar to his father's. It was a time when Todoroki Shoto felt hatred towards his father, he was sure he had overcome it, he even used his fire side, but remembering those times caused him a bit of doubt, questioning if using that side again was the right thing to do. Todoroki. Calm down Shoto, that's in the past, using his fire side again. He throws another flame at Gang Orca, but once again the flames are deflected by the gusts of wind launched by Inasa. This again caused the two to argue. The observers, who were rating the students as well as the civilians, were somewhat concerned about the scene that the Shiketsu student and the UA student were causing. Both young men launched their respective attacks again, but again, said attacks were deflected. What was different this time was that Todoroki's flames were deflected towards Shindo, who was still under the effects of the sound wave that the villain had caused. Shindo wanted to move, but it was impossible. How long would the sound wave's effect last? But before the flames could reach him, something fell from the sky and caused the flames to be diverted from their path. Or rather they were cut off. When the flare ended, the green-haired man could be seen, who was completely covered by his quirk and carried in his hands a black katana wrapped in a strange energy, whose color seemed to be green, but it was somewhat difficult to confirm the color because said energy was transparent. The most notable thing about his appearance was that his forearm was covered with quick-drying cement. Izuku, Todoroki, Inasa. Both of them were still perplexed by the action that the green-haired man performed. Izuku. What the hell are you doing? Angry. Everyone was surprised to hear the green-haired man scream. Izuku. Don't you see that you have a villain in front of you? Leave your problems for another time. After rebuking both students' behavior, Izuku imbues his free arm using his quirk and hits the other, breaking the quick-drying cement and thus freeing his arm. Once released, he creates two swords with his quirk and launches his Ninaju Unipondo Hu attack, 72-pound cannon, at Gang Orca. Since his swords weren't sharp, his energy attack would only be blunt. Gang Orca blocks the attack with one of the debris, but the power of said attack manages to pass through the debris, further damaging the weights on his wrists and part of his clothing. Gang Orca. This kid's power stares at the green-haired boy is impressive. Izuku doesn't look away. Despite noticing Gang Orca's strength, he couldn't let his guard down against an enemy. Some of the henchmen shot cement bullets at the green-haired man, but he widened the blade of one of his katanas to use it as a shield, thus blocking the bullets. After that, he approached each of them, knocking them out with one or two attacks, and on those who managed to shoot, he used the Sanjuroku Pondo Hu technique, 36-pound cannon, to destroy the bullets and incapacitate the henchmen. Once he managed to finish them off, Gang Orca was going to follow, but at that moment he had already approached the green-haired man and used his sonic wave near him. Izuku. Damn Dishin kneels down, struggling not to fall asleep. Chapter 8. Incapacitated. Barely able to stay on his knees, Uraraka Izuku had been defeated. Izuku was in a bad situation. The sonic wave had hit him directly and he could feel the paralysis in his legs and part of his arms. Gang Orca. I must admit. You and that young man are pretty tough. The green-haired boy turned to where Gang Orca was looking. Shindo, the student from Ketsubutsu Academy, was also managing to stay on his feet. They believed that Gang Orca would attack both students again, but it was Todoroki who seemed to be about to attack again with his flames. The hero hits the bicolor with his sonic waves up close, causing him to fall to the ground. He performs the same sonic wave attack towards Inasa, who tried to dodge said attack from a distance, but a cement bullet manages to hit his arm with a small sonic wave, causing him to begin to fall. But before he hit the ground, he managed to use his quirk air manipulation to cushion the fall a little. Gang Orca was less effective due to distance. The henchmen left Gang Orca to attack the first aid station. Todoroki and Inasa were still on the ground, reflecting on their actions that allowed the villains to attack the civilians. Inasa. It can't be tries to raise his head, I became what I hate the most. Todoroki. My actions caused all of this, tries to get up, I must solve it and fix what I have done. Gang Orca was approaching the first aid station with his henchmen in front of him. Izuku raised his sword in an attempt to intercept them, but when they were close enough. Boom. Izuku. What? The henchman near him had fallen unconscious. What had happened? Iida. Are you okay, Uraraka? Izuku. Iida. His classmate had arrived on time, accompanied by the other classes. Together, they were facing the henchmen. Iida. Don't worry Uraraka, we will protect the civilians. Uraraka Izuku witnessed the teamwork of the classes from every academy. It almost seemed as if they forgot they were taking an exam to obtain their hero licenses. Izuku. Smiles I can't stay behind. Shindo. That makes two of us. Izuku. Hey can you move now? Shindo. Not at all but I have some resistance to vibrations from training with my quirk. That's why I can stand up now. Shindo places his hands on the ground and uses his quirk to generate an earthquake beneath Gang Orca. The vibrations rendered the hero villain unable to move. Shindo. Curse, it's your chance, directing his words to Izuku, finish him off. Izuku stands up, using the ounce of strength he had, he begins to walk towards the villain, while creating 3 katanas with his quirk. Gang Orca saw the young man's intentions, raising his guard ready to deflect the attack, but when he least expects it. Whoosh. The fire tornado suddenly appears. Engulfed in flames, the Orca gang is shocked to notice the source. Todoroki, Shoto and Inasa were working together, achieving what seemed impossible. Gang Orca. Not bad, calms his emotions while taking out some water bottles and pouring them over himself. I'm sorry to say they probably won't approve. Izuku. Santoryu. The hero was waiting for the tornado to dissipate while keeping his guard up, but something was wrong. Supposedly, both young people would have to stop using their powers so that Uraraka could connect with its attack, but they didn't seem to give up on the attack. Izuku. Damn, I can't move properly. The green-haired man fell, the effect of the Orca gang technique had really hit him. When he was thinking of a way to move more freely, someone grabbed his arm. Izuku. Huh? Confused Shoji. Shoji. Let me help you, Uraraka picks him up. Izuku. Thanks. I need you to throw me into that tornado. Shoji was a bit confused by the green-haired boy's request, but upon meeting him, that confusion disappeared almost instantly and he threw him with all his might into the tornado. Izuku. And I said I wouldn't use this technique again, with his swords in his hands and mouth Santoryu. Izuku crosses the tornado, lighting his swords with fire, arriving to see Gang Orca, who was surprised by his appearance. Izuku. Yaki Onigiri. Demon embracing slash. Although the technique is called that, it was more like 3 blows than cuts that connected with the hero. Izuku was thrown out of the tornado, landing roughly with parts of his clothing burned off. When Todoroki saw his partner on the ground, he stopped his quirk. The fire tornado returned to being a normal tornado, but Inasa deactivated his quirk, showing Gang Orca with some wounds caused by the green-haired man's attack. The hero was ready to continue after spilling a couple of bottles of water on himself, but an alarm had sounded warning that time had already ended. Izuku. Thank goodness, breathes a sigh of relief. Good job. The green-haired boy sees that Momo was the one who told him that. She was exhausted too, with some stains from the quick-drying cement. Izuku. I guess they caught you too. Momo. Nervous laugh, I was distracted for a second. While they talked a little, Momo helped the green-haired boy get up and take him to the rest of the class. Both Todoroki and Inasa were also helped, not only by some members of their respective classes, but also by some henchmen who helped free them from the quick-drying cement. Gang Orca. It's really hard to move with these restrictive bracelets. However, that flame prison was really impressive, sees in the distance how his henchmen helped Todoroki and Inasa with all the damage from the dehydration and Uraraka's assault. If this had gone on, he. Henchman. What are you laughing at, Mr. Orca? Gang Orca. Nothing, smiles a little. Time passes and students from all classes were already wearing their uniforms, waiting for the test results to be ready. Uraraka. We did everything we could, nervous. Sigh. How did they rate us? Thinking. Jiru. This is undoubtedly one of the worst moments in life. Momo. Calm down, Jiru, calming the violet-haired girl, as long as you've done your best, I'm sure everything will turn out well. Jiru. Thanks, somewhat calm. By the way, where are Kirishima and Uraraka? Confused. Kirishima. Here we are, exhausted. The 3 turned to the redeed to see that he was carrying Izuku, who was asleep. Uraraka. Sayu. Momo. Kirishima. What? Confused. Uraraka. When did he fall asleep? Pointing at the green-haired boy. Kirishima. When I finished putting away my suit, I heard a knock and he was asleep on the floor. Uraraka. He's definitely exhausted, laughs a little. Kirishima. Sees Momo approaching the green-haired boy. What are you doing? Momo. I'm sorry, but he's cute when he's sleeping, touches one of the sleeping green-haired boy's cheeks. Jiru. Do you really find it cute that a person capable of cutting steel with a sword is asleep? Momo. It's when he's asleep that he looks harmless. Jiru. Somewhat confused. The board with the names of the students who passed was visible to everyone. Everyone was happy to find their names, while others were somewhat discouraged. Inasa and Todoroki didn't find out their names, but they knew the outcome of having made such a scene in front of a villain. As for Bakugo. Bakugo. Why isn't my name there? Angry, about to explode. Those who were near the gray-haired man only had a drop of sweat due to his strange behavior. Izuku. Shut up, walking explosive, waking up. Bakugo. Turns to look at the green-haired boy. What did you say? Angry. Izuku. With one eye open, what you heard, somewhat irritated. Kirishima activated his quirk on instinct, thinking he would probably end up in the fight as collateral damage. While both were arguing, Mera calls everyone's attention and explains about the future, since after the retirement of Almight, reckless criminals will appear without fault, crimes will increase, and the world would suffer a great change. Mera. You mustn't forget that, as things stand right now, you're on provisional licenses. You're not even halfway to becoming a hero, so we hope you'll resume your studies at your respective schools with even more enthusiasm and diligence. Looks of determination appear on the students after hearing Mera's words. After delivering his message, he informed the failed students that they still had another chance if they attended a special training course, as they wished to unleash the potential of the 100 students who had been selected. Although it would be difficult to balance the special training with school activities, the failed students were more than determined to attend. After a short while, some students were outside with their provisional licenses in hand. Crying with joy, happiness, an attempt to hide that emotion, and the desire to scream. Many were excited to have obtained their provisional licenses, although some of them didn't want to show it. Tokoyami was an example. He was happy to get his license even though he tried to hide it, but where was Izuku? Somewhere, more specifically in alley, Kami was walking while calling someone on the phone. But as she did so, her figure seemed to melt, actually revealing her true identity. Toga. Once she finished changing, she was about to leave until she noticed a woman with light green hair who had witnessed the whole scene and probably heard her. She was wearing a long dark velvet jacket, a green blouse, blue jeans, and comfortable shoes. Because it was getting dark, the sun behind her made it difficult to see her face clearly. Toga. You heard everything, didn't you? Hello girl. He gets a little closer to her. Are you lost? The girl runs towards the woman and attacks her with a box cutter, but she stops it with her arm. Toga smiled, thinking she had managed to cut her, but that smile disappeared instantly when she heard the box cutter break. The woman spins around to deliver a kick straight to the girl's abdomen, causing her to flinch. Toga. What holding her abdomen? You know, I don't know how female students greet each other these days. She rolls up her sleeve, revealing a hidden tent blade, but I'm sure it's not like that. Toga doesn't retreat and attacks the girl head on. She uses the tantman and breaks the blade of the cutter, causing the young woman to click her tongue. The Toryu Nigiri Toro. Climbing the tower. He makes 2 upward strikes, avoiding using the edge of the blade. Toga was unable to block this attack. The Toro. Tower climbing response. While still in the air, he slashes downwards twice, launching 2 energy blasts. The impact of the attack causes wounds to the young woman. Although they were superficial, he managed to injure her enough to prevent her from moving. Toga. Curse falls unconscious. Watches the fight scene. I'm in trouble. She takes out her phone and calls someone. Phone. Hello Monet. Monet. To Shiggy, I need your help. Chapter 9. In one part of the city, a certain orange-haired girl was sitting on a fountain. She seemed to be waiting for someone. Sai looks at her classmates' messages on her phone. Pony. Good luck on your date, Itsuka. Kendo. Smiles writing in English. Thanks. Pony sends the message. Satsuna. Well, now you admit that Izuku is your boyfriend. Kendo. Blushing. Don't bother me. Satsuna send the message. Gabara. I will ask the Lord to protect you. Kenda. Doesn't know how to respond to that. Satsuna. Don't forget to use con. The orange-haired girl locks her phone and puts it in her backpack. She was still wearing her UA uniform, having recently left the building where she took the license exam. As she puts her phone away, she couldn't help but watch the sunset. Kendo. How nice. Izuku. You think so? I think you're prettier. She is surprised to hear a familiar voice behind her. Kendo. Izuku. Angry. Don't scare me like that. The green-haired man laughs for a few seconds, but then surprises her with a hug. Kendo. EA. Surprised. Izuku. Will you forgive me for scaring you? Innocent smile. Kendo. A coffee, and I forgive you. Looks away. After confirming the truce, Kendo moves the green-haired boy attached to her a little and takes his hand, then walks with him to the nearest cafeteria. Kendo. I am still a little embarrassed by public affection. Izuku. Light laugh. You say that, but I remember that in the mall, and Itsuka. Kendo grabbed my clothes, telling me to keep her. Kendo. You said it was because of the rum and raisin ice cream. Izuku. And it was like that. You were so cute that day, you even made puppy eyes at me. Kendo. He couldn't help but laugh a little, as he imagined that. But what's your point? Izuku. You may be a little embarrassed to show me affection in public, but when you're drunk you're very attached to me. Laughs a little. Kendo. You're right. As revenge, he grabs the green-haired boy's arm tightly. Izuku. Itsuka. Somewhat blushing. Kendo. Any problems? Joking with him. Izuku. Why, you're very close to me. Why, they're soft. Although it was revenge, she was also blushing for having done that. Seeing some people passing by, she couldn't help but feel tenderness at seeing the couple so close and blushing. Elsewhere, Monet and Toshigi, the driver, were in a car. In the back seat was Himiko Toga, who had only a sleeping bag protecting her upper body, which was covered in bandages. Although she was unconscious, she was wearing handcuffs and a quirk-proof anklet. Toshigi. Why did you do something like that? Worried. Monet. She attacked first angry. Toshigi. Sighs, at least you chose the stage well. You didn't draw much attention from people. Monet. This isn't my first time fighting. It took me a while, but do you recognize her? Toshigi. Yes. The description of the UA students matches her. She belongs to the League of Villains. I think her name was Monet. Himiko Toga. Toshigi. Yes, that's the one. Since she's connected to the League, maybe we'll be able to find out what their leader's next move is. Monet. Thoughtful. Toshigi. Is something wrong? Concerned by her friend's expression. Monet. What are they going to do with her? Toshigi. To tell you the truth, I don't know. Who knows what the government would do to a student like me? Both are surprised to hear the young woman's voice. She wanted to get closer to both women, but Monet points her sword at the young woman. Monet. Don't move with a murderous look. Toga. How scary. Although her tone showed fear, her ear-to-ear smile seemed to say otherwise. Toshigi. What did you mean by a student like you? Toga. As I said, I'm still a student, although I haven't been to school for a while. Monet. A student with the ability to kill. Toga. You think that's not normal? Remember, hero academies accept students with powerful quirks capable of killing. Both women couldn't believe what the girl was talking about. Toga stopped chattering when she saw Monet had her phone, which had a contact for one of the League members. He had to escape. Luckily he had already started to remove the handcuff some time ago, so he freed himself almost immediately, then he broke the window alerting Monet and Toshigi. The girl gets out of the car, but Monet had grabbed the handcuff that the young woman didn't remove from her wrist. Toga pushes off with one foot, reaching the roof of the car. The green-haired girl tries to pull her back into the vehicle by pulling on the handcuffs, but she had already grabbed on. Toshigi. Surprised when was it that sees Monet looking out the window. What are you doing? Monet. She can give us more information about the League. Gets out of the car. Toshigi. It seems that green-haired people are not afraid of death. Thinking about Zoro and Izuku. Monet managed to climb onto the roof of the vehicle, but she couldn't react to Toga's movement, who had approached her and stolen one of her swords. The green-haired girl saw that she was going to attack her and blocked it with one of her sheaths. Monet. You better give that sword back. Unsheathing the other sword he had on his forearm, he attacks Toga. Despite having unrefined movements, Toga was managing to evade and block most of the attacks. Monet is surprised by the young woman's fighting abilities. In a moment of carelessness, the car jerks, causing both of them to stumble. The reason for the jolt was that a civilian had gotten in the way of the vehicle and crashed into it, causing Toshigi to slow down, feeling sick and somewhat dazed, but Monet yelled at her that it wasn't real. From what the green-haired girl could see, the civilian had melted. Toshigi. Wait, did you say melted? Shock. Monet. Yes, that's right. What's happening with the… Suddenly, more people were getting in the way of the vehicle, and Toshigi dodged them as best she could. Monet stuck her sword into the roof of the car to keep from falling off, and Toga imitated this action, who was grinning from ear to ear. Toga. They came for me happy. At that, Toshigi shouts to Monet to cover herself somehow, as a flare of blue fire was heading towards them. The green-haired girl, although she jumped, was going to be reached by the flare, so she uses her quirk to cover her body with several layers of snow. Toshigi continued driving straight ahead while Toga stood behind the car to protect herself from the flames, holding on with the knife. The girl with the origin, a young man with black hair and a dark blue trench coat. The car breaks down and collides with a friend who was coming in the other direction. Due to the impact, Toga is thrown into the windshield of the other vehicle. Toshigi gets out with a badly injured arm and some cuts. Toshigi sees the young man who had crashed, but he disbanded another clone. I guess I'll have to thank you later, twice. Twice. I told you it was a good idea. It was a terrible idea. Both villains had appeared from an alley, all the civilians fled upon seeing them. Toshigi wanted to pull her sword out of the vehicle, but when she tried, she knelt down in internal pain. Toshigi. What? Twice. Stay there, get away. Kicks Toshigi away and then charges Toga. Toga. It hurts. Wounded by the impact. They should be more gentle with a lady. You're not a lady. Indifferent. Toga just stuck her tongue out at the boy. As they were about to leave, a sword pierces David's shoulder. The villains search for the source of the weapon and see a green-haired woman swooping down on them in the sky. Izuku. Really? Surprised. Izuku and Kendo were in a restaurant. Kendo. Yes. Believe it or not, Monoma managed to get through laughs a little at the green-haired boy's surprise. Izuku exhales irritably. Now he'll come to bother Class A. Kendo. Don't worry, I'll stop it when you do. Izuku. You always do, smiles as he looks into her eyes. Kendo. Do I have something on my face? Nervous. Izuku. No, you're just beautiful, protagonist smile. Kendo blushes at the green-haired boy's comment. While they enjoyed their meals, they exchanged comments about their license exams and what they experienced. Kendo had been surprised to hear that Todoroki hadn't passed the test, but when he heard that Bakugo hadn't passed, it wasn't such a surprise. That caused the green-haired boy to laugh a little. Kendo. I can't believe you thought of jumping into the fire tornado, somewhat surprised. Izuku. I was protected by my quirk, it was also necessary to use Yaki Onigiri confident. Kendo. Isn't onigiri the same thing? Confused. Izuku. Yes and no. Yaki Onigiri needs my swords wrapped in flames. Kendo. So you plan to step into the flames when you want to use it? Izuku. Light laugh. I don't think so. It's just an improvised movement. The atmosphere was certainly perfect for both of them. Even though the restaurant was full, they paid no attention to their surroundings. Kendo gets closer to the green-haired boy and was going to kiss him, but when he was quite close, an explosion occurs a few meters away. Izuku is alerted and leaves the restaurant with Kendo following him, but not before leaving the money with a waiter. As they leave, they head toward the source of the noise. Many civilians were fleeing the scene. An armored truck had been overturned, missing a wheel. The vehicle's overturning caused a minor traffic accident involving several vehicles. The green-haired man was about to move forward when he suddenly heard Kendo's scream. Izuku looks where she was looking and notices a wheel with a face on it. That scene would really scare anyone, especially since the guy looked like he was in pain. In front of the armored vehicle, 3 shadows could be seen. The smoke dissipated slightly, revealing that they were wearing strange masks, the kind used by plague doctors. Izuku didn't hesitate for a second and launched an attack, grabbing a piece of steel along the way and imbuing his quirk into the material, giving it a sharp blade. When trying to hit who seemed to be their leader, one of his henchmen blocks him using a car door. Izuku uses more force to his tongue, managing to cut the door in half. Suddenly, he feels strange, as if his body's vitality has disappeared, and he is slightly disconcerted, giving the henchman a chance to connect a blow, sending the green-haired girl back, colliding with one of the buildings. Izuku. Damn, trying to endure the pain, who are these guys? Thinking about this, he suddenly moves his head to avoid a metal stake and moves away. From what the green-haired man can see, one of them seems to be able to shape metal into any shape he wants, while the other has super strength. It was strange that one of them wasn't doing anything, but right now he had to take care of the first two. Izuku launches himself into the attack again, this time destroying most of the metal projectiles, taking 2 of them and placing one in his mouth. Izuku. Imbues all metals with his quirk santoryu, this will hurt later. Advanced technique, his body muscles grow a little Ringoku. The beefiest henchman was ready to counterattack, but… Izuku. Onigiri. In a flash of light, Izuku was already behind the henchman. The person had 3 cuts on his torso, and blood was coming out of them, implying a deep wound. The green-haired man wanted to move, but his body was completely worn out. Zoro's most advanced technique, Ringoku Onigiri, was a more powerful version of Onigiri, but without proper training, it causes excessive physical wear and tear. Dropping his weapons, he now stood before one of them, a thin man wearing white gloves and a black trench coat. His golden eyes stared into the green-haired man's eyes, who was kneeling due to exhaustion and muscle pain. You are undoubtedly a clear example of this disease. The man takes off his glove and is about to touch the green-haired man, who has a bad feeling about it. As he is about to touch his forehead, a large fist manages to hit him and make him flinch. Izuku. Itsuka. Chapter 10. Izuku. Itsuka, what are you doing here? Kendo. Remember, we were still on a date. Besides, I wasn't going to let you have all the fun, she replies, still keeping an eye on the villains in front of her. It seemed they were going to continue the fight, but the police sirens could be heard near them. We must go. The villain simply nods and the 3, including the one who had been badly injured by Izuku, disappear from the scene. Kendo, seeing them disappear, immediately helps the green-haired man up. She knew that using Zoro's techniques would cause him excessive exhaustion, so she didn't hesitate to yell at him about how dangerous what he had done was. Time skip. It had been a few days since that incident. The identity of the villains who had caused the incident, or which faction they belonged to, was unknown. Was it a group similar to the League of Villains? Was the question the authorities were asking. The idea that they belonged to the League of Villains was dismissed, as attacking an armored truck didn't seem like something they would do. Right now it was dusk, and Izuku was training intensively, attacking some wooden targets using some training bamboo swords. With each attack he performed, the memory of his little confrontation with that villain and questions about his quirk came to mind. He remained like that for a few minutes until he realized he had attacked nothing. Izuku? Huh? One of the swords had broken, as had one of the lenses. Izuku? Damn. Shoji. Hirano. Izuku? Yes. Shoji. Sorry, but could you take this? Shows him a garbage bag. The green-haired man nods and takes the bags to some nearby trash cans, but when he was about to leave them, he noticed a face on the wall. Sees the green-haired man. Izuku? Sees the mysterious face. They stared at each other. Hello smiles. Izuku? Hey, are you okay? Izuku? Wait pinches his cheek. Yes, I am. So you're the samurai of class 1A. Izuku? Samurai? Confused. All the UA students call you that for two reasons. One is because you always fight using katanas or training swords. Izuku? That doesn't mean he's a samurai, there are people who aren't and fight with swords or sharp weapons, somewhat confused. Wait, what's the other reason? Curious. They say your father looks like a samurai, so. Izuku? I think I know where you're going with what you said, somewhat irritated, with a hand on his head. One way or the other. Disappears from the wall and reappears at the side of the green-haired boy's feet, causing him to have a slight start. Izuku? Of all this, who are you? You'll find out soon enough. And don't worry, I just came to see the rumored class A samurai. Izuku was slightly surprised. The fact that the face in the ground knew he had his guard up meant he had quite a bit of combat experience. Once he said those last words, said face disappeared, sinking into the ground. The green-haired man was surprised by the quirk of the one who had disappeared. Izuku? I have a bad feeling. At that moment a bag hits his back. Bakugo. Broccoli, you forgot a bag. Izuku? Ah. A vein pops out on his forehead as he turns to look at the ashen-haired boy. If you took the time to bring it, you could have thrown it in the dumpster. The green-haired man points to the container next to him. Bakugo? I could, but the bag wouldn't have hit you, laughs proudly. Izuku? I see, creates a blunt sword. Honestly, the green-haired man wasn't in a good mood after what happened on the date with his girlfriend and what that villain did to the nearby civilians, so that slight provocation was enough to make Izuku attack. Approaching the ash-haired boy, he attacks with a punch to his stomach, hard enough to make him flinch. As expected, the green-haired boy's punch made Bakugo respond with his AP shot technique. The green-haired man begins to evade and deflect the projectiles, but some managed to hit him and others exploded when he touched them with his weapon. What was he looking for? Why did the ashen-haired boy suddenly provoke him? Questions popped into his head as he tried to get closer, dodging the projectiles. Already quite close, Izuku attacks with his blunt sword, but Bakugo dodges it without thinking that it was a feint. He got a little closer and delivered a blow that pushed the ashen-haired boy several meters. Collision, exchanges of blows, explosions, and quick reactions led both students to ground beta. Of course, all of Bakugo's attacks alerted the academy security. The robots activated the silent alarm to prevent the students from causing a scene, so the alarm woke up two people. Izuku? What do you gain by doing this? Asks Bakugo while taking off his shirt that had been destroyed and burned by the Musu's explosions. From Bakugo. Bakugo? The only reason to do it. The ash-haired boy rises with his explosions, and when he reaches the highest point he can, he begins to descend while spinning with the help of the explosions, generating a tornado. Bakugo? Is to surpass yourself. Izuku? I don't know what he said, it's quite far away, but I think I understood. The green-haired man merely smiled as he generated a sword and sheath made with his own quirk. Maintaining such a precise design of the weapon only meant one thing. Izuku? Inhale, exhale. His mind was calm. Izuku? Itoryu. Bakugo? Hoitzer. Izuku? Sanjuroku Pondo Hu. Bakugo? Impact. Both attacks hit each other, causing them to be thrown into buildings. Izuku ended up with severe burns on his arm and abdomen, while Bakugo had his shoulder dislocated by the green-haired man's attack. Izuku? Coughs a little and gets out of the rubble. Shit, that'll leave a mark. Bakugo? Tell me about it, Murimo. He approaches the green-haired boy. Izuku? By the way, Muslim thanks. Bakugo? Ah. What are you talking about? Izuku? The robbery incident. Bakugo? You know you can't save everyone. He places his hand on the green-haired man's shoulder, but we must strive beyond our limits to avoid the worst results. Izuku? Surprised. Bakugo? What's going on? He was somewhat confused by the green-haired boy's reaction. Izuku? I never thought you could talk like that. I thought you only thought about blowing everything up. Bakugo couldn't help but show his angry gesture at the green-haired boy and shout a little, while Izuku just laughed, but in doing so, he saw that one of his arms couldn't move. Izuku? Your arm. The green-haired boy noticed that his classmate had a dislocated shoulder, and when he was about to help him, a certain teacher with the quirk of erasing had found them. After the intense battle at Ground Beta, news of the confrontation between Izuku and Bakugo quickly spread throughout the academy. Both students, injured but determined, were taken to the infirmary to receive some treatment, as Aizawa told them that they wouldn't rely on the lady's quirk to treat the minor wounds. This was followed by a punishment for both students for using their quirks outside of training hours, not to mention using the Ground Beta area. While they were recovering, the UA director decided to investigate the identity of the villains who caused the previous incident. An emergency meeting was called with the academy's teachers and heroes to discuss strategies and security measures. Izuku, reflecting on his confrontation, began to question the nature of his quirk and how to improve his abilities. Furthermore, the encounter with a mysterious individual who appeared on the ground left him intrigued, generating more uncertainty in his life as a UA student. On the other hand, Bakugo, despite his wounded pride, began to recognize Izuku's skill and the need to improve his own techniques. The rivalry between the two was slowly turning into friendship. A few days have passed since that fight. Both Izuku and Bakugo's punishment was cleaning up the High Alliance, which was difficult for the ash-haired boy, who had to do everything without straining his arm so much, since he shouldn't strain his dislocated shoulder. On the other hand, Izuku had to listen to Bakugo's complaints about not doing his job properly. Despite his behavior, Bakugo really saw every detail. Izuku? He really would be a good hero if it weren't for his personality, cleaning the part that the ash-haired boy indicated, reluctantly. Another part of the punishment was that they wouldn't be able to attend classes, so they'd be delayed for a few days. Izuku would get 3 days of detention, while Bakugo would get 4, more than the green-haired boy because he started the fight. They also couldn't attend the student meeting held by the UA principal. The boys were able to catch up with the help of their classmates. Apparently, in addition to a conversation about the principal's hair, who spoke quickly and extensively, he mentioned the incident that would change everyone's lives. The fall of the pillar of society Almight. With this, the lives of the students in the hero classes would be further affected. They will have to be alert and do their best for the hero boarding school. All of you, whether you're from the UA staff, the general department, the support department, or the hero department, don't forget that you are all the successors of this society. Those words were the ones that weighed most heavily on the students, but that didn't affect them in the slightest. Izuku? Wow, interesting, sitting on the sofa, with both hands together and on his chin. Ida? The attack you were close to may be the result of All Might's withdrawal. Izuku? Then the villains will be more active. Serious. Uraraka? But don't villains take a lot of risks? I mean, maybe All Might retired, but there are still more heroes there. Somewhat confused. Denki? Joins the conversation. It's certain that they're taking advantage of All Might's absence. The villains could be intensifying their actions, perceiving an opportunity to cause havoc without the presence of the symbolic hero. You know, with that low morale shows a garbage bag. By the way, here's Rarano. Izuku? That's true. Thanks. He gets up from the couch and grabs the bag, then shouts, hey, it's time to take out the trash. One by one the students brought their trash. I was surprised that of all the people, Mineta was the one who would have the most. Izuku? He looked at the purple-haired boy a bit witheringly. Mineta? It's not what it seems. The green-haired boy simply took the garbage bag while in his mind he warned himself not to open it. He knew this would be the last day of punishment. He was a little nervous to see how much he would have lost, but he knew he would manage to catch up with them. While carrying the garbage to the dumpster, in the middle of the road he met Itsuka. Hey, catch it. The green-haired boy reacts quickly and catches what appeared to be a soda can. He is also surprised to see who it was. Izuku? Hello Itsuka, happy to see her. She was basically an escape from his punishment, as he would occasionally meet up with her when his classes were over. After leaving the garbage in the container, he walks with her for a while, until he reaches a bench where they sit down to rest and talk. Izuku? Huh? Are you serious? Surprised. Itsuka? That's right. Dad became strong enough to use spiritual energy in his attacks, like Rarano Sando's. Izuku was amazed. There aren't many who can use such energy the way he and his father did. He saw his partner excited as if it were the first time she'd heard such news. Izuku? Laughs a little. Kendo? Don't make fun of it, pouts. Izuku? You look pretty adorable when you're proud of your father. Touches one of her cheeks, making it deflate, but I must admit I'm excited to face him. Kendo smiled at the sight of her boyfriend, determined to confront him, but then that face turned a little red when she laid his head on her lap. Kendo? You must be exhausted from all that cleaning. A little blushing. Izuku? Why, you know that my training is heavier than my punishment. He looks away a little, because in his position he had his partner's attributes in sight, they really are big. Kendo. It's true, he hit me since your punishment ends tomorrow. I hope you had time to understand that you can't respond to provocations. He hits him on the forehead. Izuku. I know, I've already thought about that, love, with a mischievous smile. Kendo blushed and Izuku stood up and kissed him on the lips. Kendo reciprocated and continued the kiss for a long time. Chapter 11. A new day and our green-haired boy was sleepy because the excitement of returning to classes kept him awake all night. And now he was trying to stay awake in the middle of class. Izuku. Sigh. Izawa. He throws a piece of chalk at him that hits the green-haired boy right between the eyes. Izuku. I'm awake, somewhat irritated. Some of the students laughed a little, among them were Momo, Jiru and Mineta, who seemed not to fear death. Izawa. Okay. Now that Rurano is awake, I'll explain a little more about boarding schools. Well, there really isn't much to say, think of it as a more formal version of the training you did with the professional heroes. Everyone understood a little, until Uraraka raised her hand. Uraraka. So what was the reason for the fights at the school festival? Ida. That's true. If we had a boarding school, then it wouldn't matter if we were being watched. Izawa. You're wrong about that, Ida. Uraraka. The boarding school is an opportunity to use the connections you made at the sports festival. If you didn't have them, it would be difficult for you to do these activities. Uraraka. I see. Sorry, I jumped to conclusions. She stands up from her seat and bows. Izawa. Don't worry, anyone would jump to conclusions from what I said about boarding school. Now, you'll hear firsthand from those with experience about how these boarding schools are different from field training. Just then the classroom door opens and 3 people walk in. Their uniforms look like they were from UA, but Izuku was surprised to see a familiar face. Izawa. They made time out of their busy schedules to come talk to you. They're the third-year students and the top of all UA students, known as the Big Three. Izuku had seen that face before, but not when he went to throw out the trash. That hair and physique were from the same student he saw on the sports festival broadcast a while back. It had made an impression on him when his clothes had fallen off during a time race, and he had also seen that broadcast with the Kendo family, so that scream from Itsuka wouldn't be forgotten either. Izuku. The Big Three, what kind of heroes will they be? With a glare. Izawa. Okay, could you give us a brief introduction? Starting with you, Amajiki. The dark-haired student steps forward and makes a strong impact on them with just his gaze, but a few seconds later he begins to tremble a little. Amajiki. It's no use. Mirio, Hado, no matter how hard I try to think of them as potatoes, the words just won't come out. He trembles and turns around to look directly at the blackboard. I want to go home. Class A was shocked to see the behavior of a top student. To prevent Amajiki from suffering, Nihire Hado decided to speak. Nijire. The hero with the heart of a flea is Tamaki Ajimiki, and I'm Nijire Hado. We've come to tell you a little about the boarding school, but. The student's attention is drawn to Shoji's mask. Nijire. No, why are you wearing a mask? Is it fashionable or do you have the flu? Curious. Shoji. A long time ago. Before he could answer, his attention shifted to Shoto's scar. Nijire. Oh, how did you get that scar? Curious. Shoto thought for a bit before answering, but she approaches another student in the class. Nijire. No. You feel pain when connecting your earlobes to things. Curious. Jiru. Well, uncomfortable. Nijire. Sees Mina's horns. Hey, if your horns break, do they grow back? Nijire's curious, adorable, and somewhat silly nature was irritating Izawa because they were wasting his time. Mirio noticed this and decided to take action, but the fact that she said half a sentence and got the rest to respond didn't work. Everyone was confused. Are the 3 of them really the Big Three? Despite their position, they each have rather peculiar personalities. Mirio. They must be confused. Serious. A change in the atmosphere caught the attention of Class A. Mirio. The explanation about boarding schools, which isn't even a requirement, has been left to 3 students who appeared out of nowhere. It shouldn't make much sense, right? Judging by the expression on the class's face, he seems to have hit the target. Mirio. You guys got your provisional licenses as first years, right? You must have a lot of energy. Slight smile. The introduction was a disaster. So. Izuku. Are we going to fight you? Yawns. Silence fills the room. Both Izuku and Mirio seem to be staring at each other. Mirio. I see you read my mind. Nods. Nothing is better to demonstrate our experience than using our bodies. Isn't it? Izuku. That sounded too bad, with a disgusted gesture. Eraserhead didn't say anything. He didn't like the idea of them fighting the Big Three because it would be annoying to fill out the reports, but they would have some experience from veteran students, so he let everyone pack their things and they went to the gym. Izuku watched the big three closely, trying to find out about their quirks. Momo. Izuku, what are you thinking about? Appears behind the green-haired boy. Izuku Momo slight surprise it's about their quirks. There are countless quirks and from time to time the creativity of the wielders makes them strong but which ones do they have and what helped them reach the top? The green-haired boy's curiosity caught Momo's attention. Momo. I don't think you should expect much. You'll know when you face them. Izuku. Yes, although I see that you are also excited. Momo. Huh. Surprised, what do you mean? Izuku. You can't lie to me, your eyes give you away, laughs a little and then hides a slight yawn. The young Yaoi Rozu was taken aback by the green-haired man's words. A slight blush appeared on her cheeks and she became nervous. Momo. Well, nervous. Izuku. PFF hahaha. Momo. Don't make fun of him, she hits him a few times while pouting. The fact that their teachers knew each other was making them closer. After changing into sports clothes, Class 1 was preparing for the fight in the Gamma Gym. Mirio stood in front of them, stretching a little. Tamaki wanted to stop his classmate to explain the importance of boarding schools, using a more normal and safe method. He said all this while leaning his head against the wall. Tamaki. It's not like they have a strong will. No matter what, avoid hurting them so much that they can't stand up. That caught the attention of some of the Class A. Najire. Did you know this? Once upon a time, a boy became so frustrated that he gave up on being a hero and caused trouble for his classmates. He explained to the class while playing with Mina's horns. Despite the warnings, Class A was still confident in facing Toga Mirio. But it was strange that he decided to face the entire class alone, even though they were already experienced in fighting villains and had a numerical advantage. Hiroshima. The fact that Najire-san and Tamaki-san care so much, could that be interpreted as them not seeing us as a threat? Mirio. That's right. I want you to attack me with everything you've got, without worrying, confident. Okay, who goes first? Hiroshima. Why? Izuku. I'll do it, covering the Bakans with his metal quirk. I'm sorry Kirishima, but right now I'm full of energy. Kirishima could tell the green-haired man's spirit was on fire, so he decided to let him attack first. Izuku doesn't hesitate and moves forward to attack. With a horizontal slash, he manages to connect her, so he thinks. His surprise was too much when he notices his weapon pass through Mirio's body, feeling no resistance. After finishing his action, Izuku steps back to analyze the situation and realizes that Mirio's clothes had fallen off. Izuku. Hey, this points to his clothes. Balsam student screams, whose cause was the surprise of the situation. Mirio apologizes while putting his pants back on. Mirio. Sometimes it's hard to adjust the details. As he said that, Izuku approached again and attacked with both Bakans, but the result was similar. The swords passed through Mirio without resistance, and this time his pants hadn't fallen off. His teammates' long-range attacks were going to reach Mirio's back, but they only passed through him, and Izuku blocked them with his Bakans. Mirio, I should. The young man passes through the floor and reappears behind the students. Without wearing pants. Mirio. Take out the ranged ones, right? Ioka's scream had been heard throughout the gym, drawing the attention of the others. In 5 seconds, all the students with ranged attacks were knocked down with a single blow each, leaving only a group of moans. The rest of Class 1 was shocked as they wondered how he had arrived so quickly. What quirk does Toga Mirio possess? Izuku. Guys, stay alert. The students, still in good condition, listened to the green-haired man's words. Izuku. There must be a limit to how long he can stay underground. Whatever his quirk is, he must deactivate it if he wants to attack us directly, at which point we can counterattack. Hiroshima. Wow, I like this Uraraka unleashed. Mirio. Good idea Uraraka. You should try. At that moment, Toga activates his quirk, dodging an attack from behind by the vice president of 1A, Yaoi Rozu Momo. Mirio turns to see the student, then lands a direct blow to the abdomen, but at that moment he had created a shield before the attack connected. Mirio. Impressive, your reaction time to create protection in a short time is amazing. The young man attempts to attack for the second time, Momo steps back and at the same time Izuku approaches and then adopts a stance to use an attack. Starting by spinning. Izuku, Santoryu. Tatsumaki. Espral del Dragon. The green-haired boy generates a tornado, multiple attacks flew through the area of the attack, but none of them reached Mirio, who was in mid-air due to Izuku's attack. Izuku. How is it possible that none of our attacks reach you? Mirio doesn't respond. As he approaches the ground, Iida runs towards him and attacks with a kick powered by his quirk, but the result was similar and the student falls through the ground. Iida. We'll never be able to land a hit if we don't figure out how his quirk works. Light frustration. Izuku. Until then, it's a battle of endurance. The green-haired boy thinks carefully, but can't think of a way to counter Mirio's quirk. Izuku? Any ideas? Iida thinks for a moment, but declines at the green-haired boy's question. In a matter of seconds, the rest of Class 1 fell, leaving only Iida, Yaoirozu, and Rarana. The three chose to surrender. Izuku didn't want to, but the fight would never end, and time wasn't on his side. While Mirio was looking for his sportswear, the others opted to help the rest to their feet and then gathered in front of the big three. Final result. All but 4 students, Rarana, Yaoirozu, Iida and Todoroki, ended up with stomach blows. Mirio. What did you think? Is my quirk strong? Many people complained about Mirio's quirk. Not only because of his movement speed, but also because of the fact that he's invincible. Mina. Are you one of those hybrids like Todoroki? Kirishima. Is that it? You could pass through our attacks and you also did teleportation. Hato looked excited. She knew Toga Mirio's quirk and wanted to tell everyone, but Tamaki told her it was Mirio's turn to speak. Mirio. My quirk is permeability. The teleportation you think was just a way to apply my quirk. After those words he had to apologize to Hato Najire, who was pouting at him while pulling at his shirt. Class A believed it was an incredible quirk since it made them invincible in combat, but at that moment Mirio explained in more detail about his quirk. When he activated it, he could phase through anything. But that was really everything. His eyes didn't catch light, his eardrums didn't vibrate, and the air in his lungs was passing through him. He also had to take into account every single operation he had to perform just to pass through a wall without passing through the floor, and since he had mass, the only sensation when he fully activated his quirk was falling. Class A realized how dangerous his quirk was. If he used it carelessly, he could have died. Mirio explained the reason for this fight. He wanted to show them the experience he had gained at boarding school, since thanks to it, he was able to reach the top and become one of the big three, approaching the level of a pro hero. Classes had ended and Class A was in the dorms resting. Bakugo was beyond frustrated and furious. His screams could be heard throughout the building. He'd heard from Mineta that the big three had appeared and the outcome of the fight. Needless to say, he burned all the trash with his explosions to let off steam. Uraraka. It's amazing we're still first years, we should keep watching and learning, but now excited. Sai. I must ask Selkie if I can do the internship with him. Jiro. Mina. Don't you think it's romantic that he reached the top from the bottom? The girls' chatter was alive in the common room. Meanwhile, Izuku was training in front of the dorms while thinking carefully about boarding schools. Izuku channels his spiritual energy into one of his katanas. Unlike other times, this time he was channeling more energy than he usually uses. When he launched the energy attack, he fell to his knees, his katana sticking into the ground. The attack had weakened him. Izuku. What should I do? At the same time, in an office. Abruptly opens the door. We have a report on the perpetrator's movements. Speak at once, with energy. Yes. The leader of a villainous organization known as Overhaul has made contact with the leader of the League of Villains. Chapter 12. The next day. The green-haired boy was in the staff room talking to Izawa, but he didn't expect the response he would receive. Izawa. No. Izuku. Huh. Confused. Izawa. I was going to let you know that it's been decided that you'll only be able to do the internship at agencies with good security. It was either that or suspend the program altogether. But keeping you under constant protection won't make you stronger. But that said, Izuku left the room and headed to his homeroom. With the new policy, he won't be able to intern with Maruko like before. She doesn't have a formal agency, and that leaves her out of options. With that in mind, he doesn't know what to do. How will he do the internship if he doesn't know of any other office? Upon reaching room 1A, he tried to open the door, but it seemed to be stuck for some reason. Izuku was confused by this. He tried to use more force, but it seemed useless. At that moment, Kaminari also arrived in the classroom. Kaminari. Oh, here you are. Izuku. Hello. Kaminari says hello, but continues trying to open the door. Kaminari. Is the door stuck? Izuku. Yes. But the strange thing about this is that it doesn't seem to have any visible damage. Momo, from inside. Izuku. Kaminari-san. Both young men heard the voice of their companion coming from inside the room. Izuku. Momo. What's wrong? Kaminari, is it a villain attack? Worried. Momo. No, Mineta accidentally stuck the door using his quirk. Izuku simply sighed and opted for a quick solution. Kaminari, Izuku. The young man was serious. Concentrating, he created a katana with his quirk and, with surgical precision, cut through the small space, managing to separate Mineta's spear without it sticking to the sword. The door opened. Izuku let out a long sigh, as if he'd been holding his breath this whole time. When Kaminari opened the door, he noticed two things. 1. Mineta was on the floor, scared, as if he'd seen death up close. And 2. One of the tables was cut in half. Izuku, damn. Deactivating his quirk. Mineta. Damn it, Uraraka. You didn't let me fix my mistake. The rest didn't know how to react to the scene. Izuku. Anyway, could you take off the sphere before you accidentally trap us again? Mineta just nodded, relieved. From his vantage point, he could tell Izuku wasn't in the mood to deal with his usual antics. While they were talking about the matter at the table, Izuku was in his own world, not paying attention to his classmates' words. He had to find a solution to his problem. Clearly, he would have no choice but to check the list of possible agencies that could accept him. The kid solved the problem with the table before the teacher arrived. Mineta had switched places and, using his quirk, glued the halves together. Izuku. Let's see. After class, Izuku takes one of the lists of agencies the teacher brought. The options seemed good, but none of them convinced him. Maruko wasn't on the list. Although he knew it was for safety, he couldn't help but feel like he could still learn from her. Izuku. With Maruko I was able to advance and fight without fear. Will I be able to become stronger in these agencies with many rules? At that moment, Kirishima entered the room, accompanied by one of the big three. Sasuke. Oops, wrong universe. Take 2. At that moment, Kirishima had entered the room, accompanied by one of the big three. Tamaki. They both approached the green-haired man, who was still absorbed in the list. Kirishima. Izubro. The Redeed touched Izuku's shoulder, who was surprised and turned around. Izuku. Ah, Kirishima. And Tamaki-san. Kirishima. He wants to tell you something, pointing at the black-haired boy. Tamaki. You see, your quirk is similar to Kirishima's in a way. I was thinking, if you're okay with it, you could come with us to Fat Gum's agency. Izuku didn't give it much thought. The agencies on the list didn't appeal to him, and Tamaki's offer seemed like a solid opportunity. So he accepted. After finishing classes that day, the kids still had time, so they headed to the Fat Gum agency in Asuha. It had taken them almost an hour to get there by train. The Fat Gum agency is a large building with a rounded roof, located between two other buildings. The main facade is decorated to mimic the appearance of the hero himself. Kirishima and Izuku were surprised by the building's appearance. Tamaki called out to them, and with his help, they were guided to the hero's office. The member of the big three knocks on the door. A voice tells them they can come in, and when they enter the office, there he is. The great hero Fat Gum, eating takoyaki while reviewing some documents. Fat Gum. Tamaki, I see you brought new friends. Tamaki. Why yes. They agreed to intern at your agency. As Kirishima introduced himself to Fat Gum, Izuku couldn't help but take a closer look at the hero's office. Compared to Maruko, who didn't actually have an agency, Fat Gum seemed more professional. But that thought disappeared when he noticed two things. He remembered that her personality made it difficult for them to work as a team. And, the trash can was filled with takoyaki packets. Fat Gum. Rorano Izuku, I get the feeling you think I eat too much. But my quirk requires me to do so. Izuku. Huh. Sorry. Fat Gum scratches his neck. I had forgotten that some quirks have complicated requirements to use them. Fat Gum. You don't have to apologize, Rorano. That's always the first impression when they meet me. The hero did not show any negative expression, which lightens the atmosphere and makes the tension disappear. Fat Gum. Okay, first I want to see how you move in combat. Follow me. Seriously, the hero stood up and led the two young men to the training area. The place was equipped with exercise machines, mats, and ample space for combat simulations. Kirishima. Wow, this place is well equipped. The redeeded youth admired the surroundings. Izuku, on the other hand, focused on placing his katanas on his belt, adjusting them precisely. Fat Gum was already in the simulation area, in combat stance, along with Tamaki. Izuku. Will we have to fight both of them? He asks curiously. Fat Gum. That's right. From what Tamaki-san told me, both of them seem to be very strong, so I researched them and watched videos from the sports festival. But what I want to see is how they fight as a team. There will be times when individual strength won't be enough. Fat Gum's words echoed inside Izuku. He'd faced enemies alongside others before, but many times he'd had to improvise. This time he'd be fighting alongside Kirishima, but how many times had they actually fought as a duo? Once ready, the simulation began. Kirishima activated his quirk and charged head-on towards the heroes, followed by Izuku, who imbued his swords with energy to strengthen their edge. Tamaki reacted quickly, generating tentacles from his fingers and attacking both of them. Kirishima was grabbed by several of them. Izuku, on the other hand, slid along the ground, dodging nimbly, and from below launched a powerful horizontal strike with one of his swords. He then spun from his position and, with his other sword, crushed the tentacles holding Kirishima, freeing himself. Kirishima, thank you Izubro. Izuku nodded and the two of them charged at Fat Gum. Kirishima attacked with a powerful punch. But his fist was caught in the hero's body. Kirishima. What? Watch out, Izubro. Izuku didn't listen in time. He executed the Nigiri Hirameki technique, making a horizontal slash with both swords at the same time. But both remained stuck in Fat Gum's body, as if they had been absorbed. Izuku, damn. For a moment, the green-haired boy froze, surprised by the hero's resilience. At that moment, Tamaki tried to grab him with her tentacles. But Izuku reacted. He dropped both swords and jumped away with an agile leap, evading the attack. Izuku. Hey Tamaki-senpai, do you feel pain if you lose the limbs you generate with your quirk? Tamaki. I really don't, B. Izuku. Thanks for the info. The green-haired man lunges at Tamaki, approaching the tentacles. He grabs the only sword he had on his belt and prepares to attack. Izuku. Itoryu, aye. The green-haired boy was preparing to attack with a draw technique, but Tamaki's tentacles were faster. Izuku narrowly dodged them and used them as a platform to push off, overtaking Fat Gum and landing behind him. Izuku. One sword style, 36-pound cannon. He launched a blunt energy attack, using his quirk to neutralize him. The impact struck the hero in the back, but his quirk absorbed the blow, thwarting his attempt to free his comrade. Izuku was shocked by the result, giving Tamaki the opportunity to capture him using the tentacles sprouting from his 10 fingers. Fat Gum. They both have quite a bit of power, releases Kirishima, but they lack teamwork. Kirishima. Yeah, we don't have much experience fighting together. He said, somewhat embarrassed. Izuku. There's a point. Tamaki freed the green-haired boy from his bonds. Izuku looked disheartened by the defeat. Fat Gum approached, placed a hand on the young man's head, and gently ruffled his hair. Fat Gum. Don't worry, this was just training. You'll learn to work as a team. It will take time, but if you're willing to improve, I'll train you. The two young men exchanged glances. Then, with a shy smile, they accepted the pro-hero's proposal. A few hours passed. Fat Gum said goodbye to the 3 students, who had to return to the academy before curfew. They were excited. They knew that, with his help, they could improve. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.